Hey everyone, we'll be getting started here in just a minute. Go ahead and find your seats and we'll be starting shortly.
No, for sure, yeah.
And I almost just he's right, but how many does he have?
Read poetry from sponge. Sorry, I'm he was like Mia seriously. He was actually the boy. He and Oscar. They're in the new movie. Oscar is kind of
I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, February 10th, 2022 with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was and still is stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. And we will go ahead and move into first roll call.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. Bain.
Here.
Bannister.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Bellamy.
Here.
Binkley. Blood.
Here.
Booze.
Here.
Kahlo. Chapas. Compton.
Here.
Cranford.
Here.
Doc.
Here.
Ansero.
Here.
Esslinger.
Here.
Fields. Gann.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Heatherman.
Here.
Holland.
Here.
Hotzel. Jimbanathan.
Here.
Colorikial.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Koch.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Lister. Long.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Marquez. Mayor. McPhee.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Pineda Gomez.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Prester.
Present.
Richenberg.
Here.
Riffle.
Here.
Rook.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Solomon.
Here.
Scharnhorst.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Schindler.
Here.
Splekel.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Sitzma.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Volgamore.
Here.
Wallace. Warren.
Here.
Willis Jackson.
Here.
And Willis Reese.
Here.
Alrighty, thanks so much.
Alrighty, with that, we will go ahead and move into first open period. And first up tonight, we have Dr. Burkhead. Welcome on Zoom.
Everybody, thank you for having me here. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about internships. A couple of y'all are familiar. I am a professor in political science, and for those of you who are not, I'm sorry for wasting your time. But what I want to do tonight is just briefly plug a couple opportunities that may be of interest to you. Right now is kind of a really good time. So I've been in correspondence with Nick before about kind of a good time for me to come speak to y'all. And we are just on the cusp of internships becoming open for congressional internships in particular, but also for a lot of different other opportunities, whether it's for the Kansas Farm Bureau or for different party organizations or something else like that. And so if you are so inclined, I'm gonna talk about specific congressional internships here in a second. But if you're so inclined, now is the time to start thinking about getting a file together. This is an opportunity for you to go and work in political offices or sort of policy offices and kind of get your feet wet. But like while you are going to probably do some menial tasks, unfortunately, that's just the name of the game, you also get to actually meet some really powerful people and also get a real sense of what people are doing while they are really making change. And one of the dirty secrets of government is that policy is not made by, like, actually, unfortunately, the gerontocracy. It's like 80-year-olds now. It's really made by people who are 20, and the people who are writing the bills that members of Congress are voting on are not 50, 60, 70-year old. They're 20 and 30. And so the way that you get your foot in the door is often through these internship programs. And so whether you are working through the Kansas Farm Bureau or it's through through a party organization, or just through the traditional congressional internship program, these are the ways to kind of get your name out there and to then meet some people. And if you stay in a congressional office or not, you can meet some people and then start moving your way up to find the place that fits you best. So whether you study agronomy or public health doesn't really matter. What really matters is if you have an interest at all in what's good for the country and what you would like to do, then this is kind of where you can go. So, so Senator Moran is the first member of Congress who represents Kansas to have his internship program out and ready to go. He's got a very positive office culture. We've sent lots and lots of students out there, and all the interns have come back. They've always had a really good experience. And so there have been some reports of other members of Congress, not from the Kansas delegation, I should say, but other members of Congress who don't have a good office culture. That is not something we've ever heard from Senator Moran. They've always had really good experiences. He's got one first. We'll talk for a second about kind of what it takes to have a good file. But what you can do from that is then is what we can talk about is like kind of taking a good file and then using that to then, even if you don't really particularly care to work for Senator Moran, like is still take it, go and use it for any other of other internship opportunities. So the idea though is to kind of, if this is something that's interesting to you now, or if it's something that's interesting to you, like say you're a freshman or a sophomore, and you just kind of want to put it in your back pocket for a little while, that's fine too. Most of these are paid. They're not paid particularly well. Like $14, $15 an hour is enough to live on, but it's not enough to live well on during the summer. But you think of this more as not a job so much as an investment and a chance to kind of move higher out. And that's kind of the way to go. So what does it require? It requires, like, they don't ask a lot of you. They want to know that you care about whatever they're doing. And then they want to see that you have some skills. It's a two-way street. You have to be able to show that you can demonstrate some capacity that they can leverage while you are there in their offices. But then also that you are somebody that like will go on to do good things. That they can kind of will be happy to kind of call upon you and say, oh yeah, that one, they're in our offices like 5-6 years ago. Like, and that's the kind of the idea there that we're going to try to cultivate. And so when Senator Moran's trying to, can't screen share, the host disabled it. So the idea though is like what Senator Moran is trying to cultivate there is like, you have a cover letter that requires you to put together a policy area that you think Congress should consider and something that you should recommend that congressmen do. This is an opportunity for you to show off. Similar things happen with, whether you're working with the Kansas Farm Bureau or something else like that. And the idea there is for you to simply show off that you know something about what they're doing and have some unique ideas that make you non-replaceable. Don't tell Jerry Moran that you should vote yes on the next farm bill when it comes up. He knows that. Instead, what you want to do is try to come up with some new ideas that are still kind of inside his comfort zone, but still can kind of put a new twist on things that show that you're a kind of a clever and unique thinker. You are already involved in student government. You already know about the constraints of policy demands. You've got different student groups kind of like calling at you, asking you to do different things. Not just student groups. You got like athletic directors and so on asking you to do different things. You understand the policy demands that members of Congress are dealing with. And so then you can kind of take that experience, put that into your cover letters and then you can use that experience to sell yourself for these opportunities. When you are trying to manipulate this, like we have considerable experience now, like placing students well in Moran's office, in Marshall's office, in all of the members of Congress, in all of the members of the House delegation, all 4 members of the House delegation as well. And so if you are inclined, I'd be happy to sit down and chat with you about how to kind of make your file look the best. We've had a good rate of success in placing Wildcats on the Hill, and I'd really be glad to sort of kind of help work with any of you as well as you kind of try to do that. As you do that, I should also briefly plug the fact that we have a unique program in the political science department, which is that you can actually get credit for these internships. You get up to 6 credit hours, the 500 level. For doing the internships, you just write a book review and then an internship report, kind of a journal. And between those two, that's about all the academic requirements, but you get up to 6 credit hours at the 500 level, which can help, get those kind of helpful 500 level upper division credits at the same time that you are doing this other work as well. The focus that we have on the internship is to make sure that you are getting like the job done there, but at the same time that you're still, making some progress as well. Okay, that's kind of enough out of some old man talking. I'd be happy to hear any questions y'all have.
Really quick, Dr. Burkhead, I'm really sorry about the screen sharing issue. I think we may have gotten it fixed if you did still want to screen share.
Oh, sure. Cool. So, all right. So yeah, great. All right. So this is something that you're going to find in Jeremy Moran's thing here. So if you are interested at all in interning from any member of Congress, so both senators here in the state of Kansas, at least, and if you're from outside the state of Kansas, we can still work with you. I don't have contacts so much with outside the state of Kansas, but I'd still be happy to work with you. They're still looking for the same kind of profile. What they're typically looking for is your resume, your cover letter, your transcript. You can't really fix your resume or your transcript too much at this point. Like both of those things are pretty much fixed. With your cover letter, that's where you can kind of show off a little bit. So Senator Moran is looking in particular for that policy problem and how you suggest that they navigate. So I already kind of talked about that in kind of general terms. I would also briefly highlight the letters of recommendation. This is actually a broader term than just like simply people who are interested in applying for internships. I know that students often don't have a good sense of where to ask people for letters of recommendation, but one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I was in undergrad applying for graduate school, and then actually really after I was in graduate school, was that you want people who have read your work, and then who actually know you. So think about people who you have taken upper division classes with, who you've written a paper for, and who gave you an A. And those are the ones you should ask first. And so from there, then think about like people who, if you can't think of those people, then it becomes like, did you get an A in an undergraduate class where you're kind of anonymous, but maybe you raise your hand a lot, or an upper division class where maybe you got a B, but they read your papers, right? But the sort of the hierarchy is like somebody who read my papers and gave me an A versus like that like kind of a B and they read my papers and like, or like an undergraduate class, like where like I only took some standardized tests, but I got an A. Those are kinds of the ways to kind of go down. Undergraduate advisors, like I really love advisors. They are lovely. They serve a really important job. They are not really the best people to give you good sort of letters of recommendation. Your priest, your pastor, whomever, also not the best source here. What you're really looking for are people who can say that like you are good at reading stuff, distilling really important stuff down just something that is like actionable. Like that's what you're looking for. And so if you were like an intern at a law firm before, and then they can say, yes, that would translate well over, then that's cool. But like just somebody who's going to give you good letter of recommendation because like they're your friend, that's where we got to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And like I know that that's kind of outside the bounds of like just this, but like I'm never going to like not give this advice because I think it's really important for folks. This is the kind of the brief flyer on the political science 510 kind of class, if you want to call it that. Again, it's really, really light. The basic idea, though, is like you simply just get credit for any internship, whether it's in government, sort of political administration, politics. Again, working for a party, working for any number of kind of, we have people working with the Chamber of Commerce and getting credit. Like it doesn't really particularly matter. Email me if you think it may count, and I'll make the decision there. But like, don't say no. Let me tell you no. And that's kind of the big idea there. But yeah, so thank you for letting me kind of give a couple aspects there. I screen share so much I forgot how to stop share. Okay, that's it. All right. Hit me with your questions.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Dr. Burkhead, Chair Richenberg?
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Burkhead, for coming to talk to us. So if we're applying for, congressional internships, should we focus, like if, for example, I'm not from Kansas, so should I focus on my congressional members in Missouri, or do I still have the same chance of getting a Kansas congressional internship?
Yeah, really good question. You really want to focus on where you live and where you vote. So if you are, say you're from Texas, you want to focus on your 2 senators from Texas and then whoever your House member is. And so that's going to be your really big consideration there. They as a general rule, members of Congress they want to take smart people, but they typically assume that smart people come from everywhere in the country. And so they will take the sort of the smartest people in their state. And so they will kind of pick and choose inside their state. So to take a Kansas example, I know you're from outside the state, but to take a Kansas example, if you're from Wichita, do not apply, but you really like Sharice Davids, do not apply to be her intern. Because she's very unlikely to take you, not because she doesn't like you, but because she's got people to choose from within her district. And so that's kind of the trade-off there. So my general recommendation is your 2 senators and then the 1 representative whose district you're in. If you're kind of in a mismatch, say you're conservative and all 2 senators and 1 representative who represent you are liberal, then I recommend looking outside the congressional route and looking for a policy area instead. And the same applies for the alternative. Say you're very liberal and you don't particularly like, Marshall Moran or Tracy Mann, then I recommend again thinking about a sort of a different route, thinking more about working for a party instead of working for just a member of Congress.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Really good question.
Are there any further questions out there? Chair Richenberg.
Okay. You're going to hate me, Dr. Burkhead, but Drew said that if I ask this question, he'll give me an energy drink. So for the Slack, for tomorrow's class, if I don't do it, is that an absence?
Just type the word skip and it won't count. But that's in the syllabus, which as a senator, you should know because this is the bylaws.
Don't look at me like that.
Resign.
I'm resigning right now. That's my resignation. Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Hey, I get my energy drinks. That's all I care about.
All right.
Man.
Are there any other questions out there? Seeing none, Dr. Burkhead, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Again, any questions at all, either now or later, it's Burkhead, Birkhead. That guy Rex Burkhead spelled it wrong. It's Birkhead at ksu.edu. I'll be happy to chat with you. Again, even if you're just thinking about it, I'll just be happy to just give you a chat, just sit down and just chat with you about how things are going. So yeah, thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate the invitation.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm going back to play. It's like Pictionary, but we're drawing words on on a flipping notebook. It's dramatic. It's very good. So enjoy your 4-hour meeting, guys. It's going to be great. Thank you very much for putting me at the top of the agenda. So,
Awesome. Thank you very much. Are there any further speakers tonight for first open period? Seeing none, we will now go ahead and move into approval of the minutes. The minutes were distributed on Tuesday with the agenda and legislation tracking information, as well as a little bit about a potential election that we'll be having in Student Senate today. Are there any questions or corrections for the minutes? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion to approve the minutes. Chair Lynn.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes will now stand approved. We will go ahead and move into announcements for the week. So first, we have our COVID-19 information at the top, as well as a link if you are trying to get any home test kits. Additionally, like I mentioned, today Student Senate will elect two student senators to serve on the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation. This committee will work to determine new SGA officer compensation amounts in the event that Bill 212261 passes. This committee will meet on Monday, February 14th from 3:30 to 5, and Wednesday, February 16th from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock if necessary. So if you're a student senator and are interested in serving on this committee, you or somebody else will have to nominate you during general orders. Nominees will then each have 10 minutes to present to the body why they should serve on the committee. And then once speeches conclude, we will vote on who will represent Student Senate on the committee. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions in that regard. Dr. Lane is the one who will be chairing that committee. Additionally, CSI is hosting a free virtual leadership conference this Saturday that's open to all K-State students. Participate in 1, 2, or 3 workshops offered this Saturday for emerging leaders, advanced leaders, and those interested in community service. You can click this link to register. Next, I am seeking 3 students to serve on the Academic Competition Teams Committee. If you haven't already been selected to serve on this committee and are interested in doing so, please shoot me an email. This meeting will happen on February 26th. Additionally, the forms for academic competition teams and sports clubs are now open. They close at 4 p.m. on Friday, February 25th, and those forms are available on the Funding Opportunities tab on the left side of Org Central. Next, proxies for this week. We have Scharnhorst for DeMott, Insero for Dunlap, Binkley for Fuss, Vogelmore for Hotzel, and Kahlo for Marquez. Next, we have our Senate shout-out link right there. And then our SGA member of the week this week is Ethan Brown. Ethan has done a great job this year in his role as Student Accessibility Director and gave a fantastic presentation to Student Senate last week. Thank you for your dedication and your contagious attitude, Ethan. If we can get a round of applause. Upcoming events are listed down below, and our quote of the week this week: determine that the thing shall be done, and then we shall find the way. And that is by Abraham Lincoln. Next, we will go ahead and move into commendations for the night. I made an error on the agenda. That should be Resolution 47. So is there a motion to consider Resolution 47? Senator Boos.
Move to consider Resolution 47.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 47. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 21-22-47. Commendation to K-State women's basketball player Ayoka Lee. Authors Juan Pineda Gomez. Sponsors Maggie Billman, Allie Dumont, and Blake Phillips. Whereas K-State's women's basketball center Ayoka Lee recently set an NCAA Division I women's record for the most points scored in a game with 61 points. Whereas Lee scored almost as many points herself as rival Oklahoma scored the entire game. Whereas Ayoka Lee is the second player since 2011 to be named USBWA's Player of the Week twice in the same season, among other accolades. And whereas Lee's career scoring and rebounding averages of 19.4 and 10.3 respectively rank first in school history, be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU SGA, commends Ayoka Lee for her outstanding performance this season and for being a fantastic representation of Kansas State University. Section 2, KSU SGA members shall chant, "Hey, hey, 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 let's go State," to commemorate Ayoka Lee's accomplishments, as is consistent with tradition. And Section 3. Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to K-State Women's Basketball Center, Ayoka Lee, incoming University President Dr. Richard Linton, K-State Athletic Director Gene Taylor, and Women's Basketball Coach Jeff Mitty.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chair Lynn.
Can you send out the sponsorship form for this one, perhaps?
Yes, I can do that. I'll send that out here in just a couple minutes. Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah, for this legislation, is there a reason why it bounces between Ayoka Lee and then Lee for the lines like 7 or 8 through 16? Is there going to be consistency, I guess is what I'm asking, like bouncing back between the first and last name versus this last name usage?
I would consider that amendment friendly.
Cool, thank you.
Gotcha. I will get that Lee consistency down. Vice President Koger.
Seeing as the accolade occurred in a Big 12 conference game, would it be appropriate to add Commissioner Bob Bowlesby to the recipient list?
I think it would.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, I have that down as well. Chair Lynn.
Whether you decide to say Ayoka Lee or just Lee, can you change line 26 where it just says Ayoka's accomplishments to whatever you decide?
Got that. Chair Porter.
Seeing as it happened under his tenure, can we also send a copy to President Myers?
Yes, I can't believe I forgot that.
Got that one as well. Are there any other questions or corrections out there? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion on Resolution 47. Chair Lynn.
I move to approve this unanimously.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 47 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 47 will stand approved.
Okay, so
Yes, go ahead.
I'll just count to like 3 and then we'll do it. And so it'll be like 1, 2, 3, and then we start.
But are we doing
Yeah.
it like what we would do?
Yeah, like at the end of like Joke and the Thief, or like halfway through like you know. Yeah.
Can we stand up?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so ready. The opposite of what I was
All right. So 1, 2, 3, and then we go. 1, 2, 3.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for that. At this time, we will go ahead and move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report tonight? Chair Lynn.
Okay, I just wanted to give a quick update on Special Committee on Strategic Oversight. Right now, we have like fully formed several brand new reports, which we are sending out to probably some of all of you to get some new eyes on those reports to make sure that they are readable and understandable, and people who have not been involved in the process actually like are able to understand what we're trying to do here. And then as far as the sexual assault report, I just wanted to give a quick update as to where we were in terms of progress that has been made on that action list. So there are originally 10 things on our sexual assault report action list. One of those is getting voted on tonight to be stricken from the list. Well, we've actually gotten 3 things from that list already done. So the Office of Institutional Equity developing a policy to address Title IX violations that occur outside of the United States is a policy that is already in place. And then the Office of Student Life and Office of Chief Financial Officer and Budget Office provided a timeline funding and institutionalizing the position of sexual and relationship violence prevention specialist for fiscal year 2023. So I don't know if any of you know Jessica Hanault. She's the one who is currently in that position, and that has been taken on by the Office of Student Life and the Chief Financial Office. And then Housing and Dining Services refining their policy regarding the prevention of those with a criminal record related to sexual violence living in on-campus housing. That has also already been done. So out of the 10 things that we had on that original report, 3 of them have already been done, which I am really, really happy with. And so, yeah, I just wanted to give some updates as far as like where we were on progress on that.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Chair Lynn? Thank you for your report, Peyton. Are there any other committee chairs who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none. Oh, Chair Harmon.
Yep, just a brief one. We are finishing up our second largest review of the year with the union this coming Monday. So that's really great and exciting. And then the other thing is we did call, you see like we have JCOC on the agenda later on tonight. So that is something that is actually called to order by the Student Services Fee Committee meeting. They just give the approval to like continue with the process. And I just wanted to explain the thought process for that. Because of the extended timeline for the joint committee that it requires, we just went ahead and called that just in case tonight's legislation passed. That is not meant to be presumptuous or anything like that, just in the case that we needed to have the committee meet in case the reorganization legislation goes through tonight. We have the ability to do that. So I just wanted to make sure nobody felt like we were trying to push that through or anything. So just wanted to make sure everyone was updated on that.
Awesome. Oh, I have a question from Senator Boots.
About face.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I was wondering what the committee was currently thinking on the union. And you know, if you have anything like proposed and or drafted in there.
Cool.
As far as cuts planned or no cut.
Yeah. This is interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been questioned on that. Just to be transparent, what's going through my head right now, I don't want to like put things out there, because I know like we haven't come to any sort of final decision from the committee, and I don't want to like speak for them or anything. But we did put out a number of questions. Like we had our last like long list of questions that we put out, got sent to Corey. So I don't really know. I genuinely just like don't know where the final numbers will fall. But I can say like it's still significant cuts. Like we're not talking, but I think I don't think it's presumptuous of me to say it's not as significant as Lafine's. So not expecting to have those types of multi-year double-digit cuts. But if that's all right, I think that's all I'm probably comfortable sharing, just because I don't know where the committee genuinely might end up. So,
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Any further questions for Chair Harmon? Seeing none, thank you for your report, Max. Are there any further committee chairs who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, I'll seek any directors who would like to give a report. Director Diaz de Leon.
All right. Good evening, Senate. I'm going to be real brief here. So next week, I'm going to be kind of giving a more in-depth presentation over a project that we've kind of been accumulating some information on since last semester over feminine hygiene products being available in bathrooms across campus, and making that something that hopefully the university can pick up. An update that I wanted to give on that right quick is before, I put out all the numbers that we've been collecting throughout this past semester and last semester. If you guys know, basically something that we've been put aware of is that a lot of colleges, like faculty and staff, or even some student organizations within certain colleges actually already do this. So if your college does that, or if you know of an organization that already does that, we know of a lot of them, but we don't know all of them. The end game goal is to try to get everybody on the same page and then to move forward from there, so we can kind of have like an actual list of folks who are already doing this. We have great faculty, we have great professors and staff that are using money out of their own pockets to help supply this project and this fund, which is great and awesome. But this should be something that the university should really put out for our students. So obviously, I'm just a man. I've never experienced a cycle of any sorts. Grew up in a house full of girls, though, and love them all to death. We want to make sure students here have everything that they need to be successful. And that's one of the things that goes along with that as well. I do know of some of the bigger ones already, such as, the President's Commission of the Status of Women. The Social Justice Alliance does a lot of really good work with that, too, except that's really specified more in the residence halls rather than, being available across other buildings throughout campus as well. So if you know any other organizations or, you have some 2 bits that you'd like to throw down on this, let me know. Feel free to contact me. Whether that's just, coming up and just talking to me myself or finding like my info on whatever the internet or whatever, just send me a DM. I'd love to talk to you, chat about that. But other than that, that's all I got for y'all.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Director Diaz de Leon? Thank you so much, Josh. Are there any further directors who would like to give a report tonight? Director Cruson.
Hey friends, hope everyone is doing well. I am coming up here to give my routine election updates and everything regarding filing numbers and all that. So first, Adrian, I was curious if you got my email that I just sent a few minutes ago. If you could pull that up, this is in response to Senator Kidd's request for some historical examples of filing and how we kind of can place ourselves with how we are currently situated with the current filing numbers that we have. And this will also give everyone a breakdown of the filing numbers per college, which is something I've not been able to do. Awesome. So we are all the way on the left. I believe we have 49 senators, if you tally all those colleges up. And yeah, so that's just kind of a glimpse of your colleges and where you all kind of can sit within your colleges. We are still waiting on the 20th day numbers from administration that would give us an idea of reapportionment for how many seats each college gets. So, for example, Arts and Sciences, I believe, has 13 seats. So right now we have 18. We don't know if that number will go up or will go down. So stay posted for that, and a sample ballot will be sent out whenever we have all those things finalized. And yeah, this kind of tracks with the historical lines that we see, but it's also a bit of a lower amount of filing numbers. I can see, or I believe anecdotally, this trend is kind of going on for every organization on campus where there's less people involved, whether that's because of COVID or whatnot. But I do want to encourage, especially for those in colleges with very low numbers that historically have pretty low numbers, like architecture, planning, and design, health and human sciences, College of Vet Med, some of these colleges that have a pretty low amount of numbers. If you have any friends in those colleges, if you are a part of any organizations on campus, that you can put a reminder to file. That deadline is still the 11th at 5 o'clock on Friday. Tomorrow, that is correct. So that is kind of how we stand with the filing numbers. Any questions regarding filing or anything like that?
Caucus Leader Volgamore.
Will any of the information on as far as who's filed be public until the ballots are released?
Nope, I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, that'll all be out. Go for it.
Sorry.
Chief of Staff Billman.
What are some good ways that we can promote filing before 5 o'clock tomorrow?
That is a great question. So our amazing social media position has made an awesome graphic for us on the Instagram account. Feel free to go to SGA's Instagram and then just share that, put it wherever. There's a QR code on that that links directly to the CASIS filing apparatus. You can also direct them to the KSU SGA elections webpage. That link is dropped pretty much everywhere. So it's like the first, I think now it's the second one that you can click on, and it says file here. So those are all great avenues as well. We also have some K-State Today posts floating out around there for both students and faculty. So if you have any faculty members that want to share this opportunity, feel free to let them know as well.
Yeah, and super quick, if you are in this room right now or on Zoom on the Student Senate information email chain that I have, there's a link that should take you directly to where you want to file. So if you're interested in running and you haven't filed yet, please go ahead and click that link in there. Caucus Leader Volgamore.
Yeah, as we're encouraging people to file right before the deadline, people may still be on the fence. Is there an avenue to get your name back off the ballot? Or is it best just to resign your position if you get it determined you don't want it, just as we're running up to the deadline here?
Yeah, so I would encourage anyone who's on the fence and is thinking about running to go ahead and just put their name on the ballot, because you can always say no if you end up having a lot of classes or other things, life stuff come up. You can always resign. You can always say, no, I don't want the position. Especially if you're in one of these colleges that have, literally 0 people running. Like, your odds of getting in is pretty good, so you wouldn't even have to campaign, do a whole lot of that work. So you could pretty easily just put your name on the ballot and then resign without really doing much.
Awesome. Any further questions for Director Cruson?
I will say I kind of interrupted with some questioning. There was one more announcement to give about the debate on Tuesday at 6 p.m. for our student body presidential candidates. It will be in this chamber and also live streamed on the SGA YouTube channel. There will be pizza, and if you can, again, share the word. We'll have a debate there, just hopefully get some insight.
Chief of Staff Billman.
The debate will also be broadcast on the radio 1 hour later, so at 7 o'clock.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Any further questions out there? Seeing none, I will now seek any further directors who would like to give a report. Advisor Ferris.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It's me again. Yay. How many of you are excited to see me? Sweet. How many of you are not? Okay, sweet. It's cool. Hopefully this week my comments come out a little bit better than they did last week. So first of all, for those of you who were at Senate, either here in person or via Zoom last week, and heard my comments shared, I want to apologize to all of you for how that was delivered. It was not delivered in the most eloquent nor professional manner, so my apologies for that. I definitely realized after I left this space that I had probably delivered some comments that didn't come out necessarily as I had originally intended for them to do so. So hopefully today I can clear some of that up and hopefully answer any questions folks may have. For those that heard what I said last week, felt pressured, felt frustrated, felt annoyed, felt offended by something I said, I'm certainly sorry for that. That's not at all my intention. That's not at all what my role of being your advisor is either. So hopefully the apology is received. I will own, regardless of how you felt, I will own that that was, again, not super professional, nor what I would normally do. What I was trying to share last week is not about a specific piece of legislation. That was a simple use of an example. And it certainly is not about any particular legislation. It is a general concern about the active participation and engagement for some in this space. Certainly not all. And if you are someone who shows up to this meeting, to committee meetings, to exec, to work time in the office, to late night work over Buffalo Wild Wings or wherever it is you're doing that work, that's important work, and I'm glad you're doing it, and that's really meaningful. And so please know that my comments last week were not directed to those of you who are doing that. So, yay, hopefully that helps. That work is really important, and so I want to encourage that work to continue to happen. I want you to take just a moment and think to yourself, am I doing all that I can for this organization? And am I doing all that I can to represent the students I was elected to represent? If that answer is no, consider taking the remaining next several weeks of this term and taking one step to do something a bit more than what you're doing currently. If the answer is yes to those questions, great. Consider to yourself, what can I do to bring someone else along with me? Because together we have to do this work as one body. A couple of years ago, student body president Jordan Keel I don't know if folks remember this. It was right at the time when we were doing, the university was launching the strategic enrollment management process, which is a really big deal on campus. And Jordan Keel fought really hard in conversations with university administrators to get students at every single one of those work groups. And time again, she faced faculty and administrators who said, students don't know, they're not prepared, they won't come prepared, they won't take it seriously, they won't do the work. And Jordan fought, because Jordan saw how much SGA students do the work, how seriously they take it, how committed they are, and how prepared they show up to do the work when it's necessary. And I hope each of you in this space and those of you who are joining us on Zoom can also agree that that is all something we want this body to also continue to do. Be prepared, show up, take it seriously. Many of you are. Some folks can probably do a bit more, and hopefully you agree. That's really what I was aiming to share last week. And I realized that may not have been how it came out. I know each person, as Cameron mentioned last week, sitting in this room and joining on Zoom, you make a sacrifice to be here. I make a sacrifice to be here. You make a sacrifice to do the work late at night. You make the sacrifice to spend your lunch hours, in between classes, your weekends. Let's make sure we use that sacrifice and we make it purposeful and we make it matter. So what does that look like? Consider perhaps sitting by someone new next week at Senate. Consider saying hello to someone you've never said hello to. Consider making someone else feel welcomed and like they're a part of this community. Consider what you're doing in this space, whether physically here or on Zoom. Are you multitasking? I'm guilty. Are you working on something else? Guilty. Are you taking notes on the discussion of what's happening in the room? Are you watching sports or something else in your computer? Are you listening to debates and questions of others and considering their ideas and their perspectives? Consider being open to hearing someone else's opinion. Consider how you might be able to come to a compromise. Consider seeking someone out who just flat disagrees with you in a conversation and think about, why are we on different paths? How can we find some place in the middle? Consider who's in the room when you're having the discussion. Look around this space right now. Take a moment, look around. Who's here? Who's here? And who's not here? Who is not represented in this space? And how do we make sure that those voices are here? Because those voices matter just as much. And consider recognizing good work done by others. Senate Shoutouts has become one of my favorite things at the end of each night. It's a great way to end a meeting. Sometimes we have some pretty harsh debate. Maybe people get their feelings hurt. But Senate Shoutouts is also a great way to recognize the great work done by many of you in this room and many of you who are not in this room. Use a Senate Shoutout to recognize something that happens here, but also to recognize something that happened Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Friday. Recognize the work of the Senate, not just use it as a funny space, which I also enjoy. So at the end of the day, I'm really here to just support the work that you're doing. I'm sorry again if I made you feel otherwise last week. I'm here to help give you advice. Please come find me. I'm happy to give you that advice. You don't want to have that conversation in person? Totally cool. Hit me up via Zoom. Met with a couple of you via Zoom this week. Great, enjoyed it. I'm here to make sure to give you that greater context of what the university picture is as someone who's been here, someone who sees beyond these four walls, and someone who sees beyond what SGA has impact on. So use it, please. And I'm here to cheerlead you but I'm also here to challenge you. So I'm sorry if something I said last week, and I'm sure it did, hurts, bit frustrated, whatever. If you would like to talk further about that, my door is open. I encourage you to have those conversations with me so we can address those things and it not become a fester beyond, if that's what may happen. So, thoughts, questions?
Are there any questions for Advisor Ferris?
Sweet.
Awesome.
Have a good meeting, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Yep.
All right. Are there any further directors who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, we will now go ahead and move into approval of the allocations for the night. Bill 60 is up for approval. That is the fiscal year 2022 on-campus allocation for on-the-spot improv. That was referred favorably from the On-Campus Allocations Committee 8-0 to 0. Is there a motion to approve the allocations? Chair Porter.
I move to approve the allocations.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the allocations. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the allocations will stand approved. With that, we are now entering final action for the night. And first up, we have Bill 212257.
Have any changes been made?
No changes have been made.
Alrighty, Blake, you have the first right to debate.
Alrighty, so you all saw this legislation last week. This deals with the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements Committee and kind of how that funding structure works. So looking at the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements Committee, the primary purpose of this pool of funding is to be used for funding new projects to give them seed money in order to get started. And so kind of what this looks like, we give programs money to kind of get them off the ground while they search for other sources of funding. This is known in the application. They're asked, what other sources of funding do you have, and how do you plan to get off of this funding? What other sources of funding are there, and what do you expect in the future? So currently, there is this thing called priority funding that was created in the economic recession in 2008 when money was really short. There were a lot of new programs that were going on, such as SAS tutoring and a few of those other things that were on, or that are still on SCTE funding today. And priority funding was created in order to not let those programs die in a time where money was short. There was really no money for new programs and different things like that. So priority funding was created as a way to slowly get these programs off of SCTE funding, since this is for new programs and new initiatives. As we have gotten further out of the recession, we realized that our economic situation is a little bit different, and there is plenty of opportunity for new programs to thrive without priority funding. Ultimately, priority funding, there were over $150,000 in requests of this $600,000 budget. That's already a fourth of that budget right there. So ultimately this legislation gets rid of priority funding so that we can really focus on funding new projects and initiatives. Something else that I really want to connect this to is the Educational Opportunity Fund as well. So Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements and the Educational Opportunity Fund are both pools of tuition money that we get from the university. These two pools of money can be changed, so we can give a certain amount of money to EOF, a certain amount of money to SCTE, and we have the ability to change that. In the event that this legislation passes, it is much easier to give more money to the Educational Opportunity Fund, which funds a lot of historically underrepresented student programs. That is something that we need at this university. I've served on the EOF committee my first 2 years here, and that fund is very, very underfunded and needs more money. Getting rid of priority funding allows that to happen and doesn't really affect new programs. A lot of these programs on priority funding right now have been on for 10 to 12 years. That is not considered a new program anymore. We know that's the case. We've been through almost 3 cycles of students here at K-State for it to still be considered a new program. Thus, I propose the following amendment to our governing documents, getting rid of priority funding so that we can focus on funding new programs and initiatives, and hopefully in the future, shifting that funding to help our historically underrepresented students. I would be remiss if I didn't add, I reached out in the past week to all of the priority funding groups who are going to be affected by this change if it were to pass. I got back 3 responses from the 4 groups. I did not receive a response from SAS tutoring, but from Wildcat Link and from Where did it go? The peer academic coaching program. I got like a, thank you very much for your support of SGA funding so far up to this point. One of them asked about application status for this year. The Writing Center did express that, they wanted to keep this funding. They use it for a lot of things. My ultimate recommendation to you, if you really care about the Writing Center and that's really important to you, is to pass this legislation and for us to change the EOF and SCTE funding amounts and to fund them through EOF. That is a much more secure funding source. We are able to fund them more due to the priority funding rules, and we're able to help students better in that way. The final thing that I am going to note here, I totally forgot. So we are going to call it there. Thank you for your time.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that debate, Blake. We'll now move into speeches in the negative on this legislation. Senator Insero.
Not quite as tall as Blake. Hi, everyone. So a previous speaker last week mentioned that SCTE was all of the Writing Center's funding, and then that was disputed by another member of this body when I tried to follow up on that. No one provided any sourcing, so I put on my little journalism hat, and I reached out to Sga Gray, the interim director of the Writing Center. I wanted to read the response to the email I sent her. Hi, Nathan. Thank you for your email. All of our undergraduate tutors are paid through SCTE funding. This term, that is 9 tutors, 6 undergrad, 3 grad. SCTE funding also pays for our online scheduling system. The English department supports us with faculty time for training and supervision of tutors, and with 3 graduate student tutors this term. The graduate students are paid through their GTA ships, so I think she misspoke earlier when she said 9 tutors. With continued budget cuts and enrollment across campus, it's uncertain how many graduate students the department can give us term to term. We have dropped from an average of 6 a term to 3. SCTE funds have also allowed us to provide tutoring in the summer session for the last few years. I've CC'd Dr. Karen Westman, the head of the English department, as she may have other information to share. Thank you for your concern, Nathan. We would not be able to provide the Writing Center services we do without the SCTE funding. So Dr. Westman provided a similar comment, but she added the following, and she actually just kind of copy and pasted what she sent to Speaker Phillips in response. Quote, without SCTE funding, the Writing Center would not be able to continue to hire trained undergraduate students to serve as tutors, and the center would not be able to continue to reach 4,000 to 5,000 students each year through face-to-face and online tutoring appointments. With trained writing specialists and to provide outreach to many more through workshops and online resources. Our efforts in the past years to secure necessary funding from central administration have not been successful. Given that we serve students from all of K-State's colleges and there is no other university-level funding source beyond SCTE to which we can apply, SCTE is a crucial, if not perfectly matched, source of funding. And then, as the senators consider the legislation this evening, I hope there will be conversations about how to assist student-centered units like the Writing Center to find the resources we need so we can continue to provide key services to the K-State undergraduate and grad students from across the university, end quote. With that noted, I want to weigh the costs and benefits of cutting that funding. I believe that the Writing Center especially is a very important resource for students from all colleges. I've witnessed this myself. My roommate used to work for the Writing Center, and I'd visit him while he was working there, and I could see the impact that he and his coworkers had on frustrated students trying to finish assignments and finish other writing projects. We've already made exceptions to the 4-year rule and other SCTE funding rules because past senators saw the value in these organizations, and those rules are frankly arbitrary. We created priority funding because money was short, according to a previous speaker. Money is short right now. We just had a $2 million callback from the SSF, formerly the privilege fee. I recognize that we've already given them more grace than we are statutorily required to, and I think that the harm of cutting these organizations is worse than the harm of not enforcing the 4-year rule or the current, or the idea that this was supposed to be seed money. What I propose instead is this. Vote against this bill tonight, and then we work with these organizations to find a permanent source of funding, like what previous speaker suggested at the end of his speech. But I think that we shouldn't cut the funding, and we shouldn't pass this bill until we know how we're going to fund them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Insero. I will now seek Senator Booz.
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment.
All right. So we have an amendment submitted by Senator Booz. Adrian, would you mind putting that up on the screen?
I mean, I'd love if you could send the file to everyone here because it's fairly big and it won't all fit on one screen.
Yes. So I'm going to explain what this amendment does and my ruling here in a second. So this amendment, instead of getting rid of priority funding, changes it so that it reduces by 15% every year instead of the 10 to 20% that is currently in the legislation. So does that make sense to everyone?
It's 20.
20.
I changed it since I talked to you.
Oh, got you. Yes. So Senator Booz's amendment decreases it every single year by 20% instead of what is in the legislation right now, which is 10 to 20% that my proposed legislation cuts entirely. My ruling on this amendment is that this amendment is not germane, meaning that it will not be considered by the floor. This is because the purpose or the point of the legislation submitted is to completely remove priority funding, as in priority funding should not exist, and this amendment purely just changes what the current status quo is. So this amendment will not be considered because of that ruling. So with that, I will now seek additional debate in the positive. Oh, Intern Coordinator Grills?
Point of information.
Granted.
I forgot to mention this, slight announcement, forgot to mention this up at the stand. I just want to remind everyone that you can ask questions at any time without a questioning period by saying like request for information or point of information. Forgot to do a friendly reminder just in case you feel like you want more information on anything. Obviously, no debate by question.
Correct, yeah. If you have a question of clarification, you can direct that at me, the speaker, or if you have a question about what's going on parliamentary procedure-wise, you can also ask that. Senator Booz.
I have a motion to reconsider the decision of the chair.
To appeal the decision of the chair?
Appeal.
Gotcha. That does require a second to appeal my decision, meaning you don't agree with what I just did. Thank you, Senator Blood. All right, so it has been moved and seconded to appeal the decision of the chair. This requires a majority vote. This one is a little bit weird, so I'm going to explain this. Basically, you are going to be voting yes tonight if you agree with my decision. So if you think that this amendment should not be considered, then you will vote yes in this upcoming vote. If you agree with Senator Booz that this amendment should go forward, you will vote no. Are there any questions on what we are going to be voting on? Senator Bain.
I mean, like, do we get an opportunity to, like, see the amendment before we vote? I feel like it's a little bit blindsiding to not know what's going on and to vote on it right now. Except for the explanation. Like, I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah, so let me...
I'd love if you could send it out.
Yeah, I can send that out to everyone. Let me just go ahead and forward that. Okay, that has been forwarded to the listserv. It should take just a minute to come through. There it is. So there is the amendment. That primary section that you're going to be looking for is under C 1B, if that makes sense. That's the amendment.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I rise to a point of parliamentary inquiry. Is this motion debatable?
This motion, is it debatable? Gotcha. That's my bad. I thought I remembered last time we did it. So this motion is debatable. And really quick, when we do move to a vote, you are not voting on if you agree with this amendment. You are just voting if you think that this amendment should be considered. So if you think that it is germane to the discussion, then you will vote no. If you do not think that it is germane to the discussion, then you will be voting yes tonight. So with that, because it is debatable, Senator Booz, you have first rights to debate.
Yeah, wouldn't you be voting yes to appeal if you agree it's germane?
No, so a vote yes means you agree with the decision of the chair. It's a little bit weird. It's an interesting motion.
All right, so it's time for an affirmative speech where I try to encourage you to vote no, which is a very weird, very weird speech from a debate perspective. If you don't know, I did congressional debate and policy debate in high school, and so that's a weird way to start. But anyway, really what I'm trying to do here is convince you to consider this amendment. And I think this amendment is definitely related to the topic of this bill. This bill is currently asking you to make a binary choice. Remain with the current SATE proposal in its entirety, or completely remove priority funding. And I think that there is value and there is a lot of worth in debating an amendment that would allow for kind of a middle ground here. And so overall, like it's germane because it relates to the topic of SCTA priority funding, and it continues this bill's purpose of modifying that and reducing the excesses. And so I would urge you to vote no on this piece, on this motion.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Booz. And to clear up confusion, I'm just going to say debate in the positive, like for the affirmative vote. Here we go.
That was a negative.
If you would like this amendment to be considered, I will seek that debate at this time. Would not like it, sorry. Chair Long.
Hi, we are debating we're discussing two different things here. The point of the bill itself is to get rid of a process. The point of the amendment is to modify the process. These are two separate things and require different debates and discussions, and we should not intentionally change the purpose of legislation from the author of what their wishes was.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Long. I will now seek anyone who wishes to consider the amendment for debate. I will now seek debate for those opposed to considering the amendment. Chair Harmon.
Hello, all. Thank you, first of all, Mr. Speaker. I think instead of trying to refer to this as like yes or no, just phrasing it as whether you seek to uphold the decision of the chair or to overturn the decision of the chair. I am rising to debate in order to uphold the decision of the chair. It is definitely not the correct course of parliamentary law to try and amend a bill that you fundamentally disagree with and then try and like basically turn it into a different bill. That's not germane. An amendment doesn't allow you to do that. What I would recommend to the author of the amendment is to instead withdraw the amendment and move to postpone indefinitely. That is the motion to kill a bill. If you fundamentally disagree with the bill, you could technically do that, although naturally in the normal course of events, we usually just vote no on such bills. But I am deeply opposed to the use of an amendment to fundamentally change the intent and the actual action of a bill, because that's just not what an amendment does.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Harmon. Is there any additional debate in support of considering the amendment? Is there any additional debate in opposition to considering the amendment? Last call for debate on the motion to appeal the decision of the chair. Seeing none, we will now move into a hand vote at this time. Once again, if you are opposed to considering the amendment, you would raise your placard at this time. Thank you all, and all for considering the amendment, same sign. Senator Rook, just in the future, you do have to be seated in order to cast a vote. I will count it at this point, but the decision to uphold does carry. This amendment will not be considered. Therefore, we will resume debate on the legislation as a whole, and I am seeking debate in the positive. Chair Lynn.
to be very clear on what the actual what the proposal is actually saying. What we shouldn't be doing is debating on the merits of each of those individual organizations that are receiving priority funding. That's not what this debate is about. The debate is about whether or not priority funding as a thing should exist or whether it should not exist. When we're taking a look at things like the Writing Center specifically, they need to be moving to more permanent avenues of funding. Even if we leave them on priority funding, that money's eventually going to run out because they're getting reduced every single year by a certain percentage until they hit zero. So I don't know how many, I'm not gonna do the math in my head right now because that'd be embarrassing for me. But in however many years, the Writing Center is going to not have money from SCTE regardless of whether or not we vote yes or no on this bill. They have up until fiscal year 2024 to be able to find a more permanent source of funding. This is not cutting the legs out from underneath of them and going into effect tomorrow. They've got plenty of time to find a more permanent source of funding because that's what they're gonna need to do in the end anyways. The purpose of SCTE is pretty clearly written in the rules. It's that we should be funding new programs and giving them seed money for new things. Right now, we're taking away opportunities for other new organizations or new projects to happen because we've been funding things for 10, 11, 12 years. When we're looking, specifically at the Writing Center, some other sources of funding that they could be applying for, like EOF, are a lot more permanent solutions to the problem. In any world at the end of this, when this, if this bill were to fail, in a couple of years, the Writing Center is gonna have to do that anyways. So I would just like us all to keep that in mind when we're making this decision tonight.
Thanks so much for that debate, Peyton. We'll now move into speeches in the negative on the actual legislation. Senator Booz.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. We are considering the amendment. So as I said, we are here to make a binary choice. Either we're keeping it as is, in which case I'm going to work on submitting that piece of legislation, that amendment as an actual piece of legislation, or we pass this piece of legislation tonight. And I do not think that this is the best choice of action to pass this. I think that it is better to work on a more middle ground, and that's why I'm speaking in the negative today. I take specific issue with a couple of the points of previous speakers. In particular, I think they have said that this will shut out funding for new programs, and I don't think that's the case. For example, I noticed in the Senate Executive Committee meeting on Tuesday that some of the proposals for SCTE for this year are things that I would absolutely not support. In fact, over $300,000 of the proposals were things like an esports team or something relating to the dining centers, which I very much think should be funded from people who are staying in the dining centers or in the residence halls. And so if the committee, and this is the committee's decision, as well as student senates, if we choose to fund those programs, then yes, I guess we are taking away. But I really doubt that that will happen. And if that is the case, then we have more than almost $150,000 or $200,000 extra for SCTE money that could go to the priority funding programs. Additionally, another speaker made the point that we could move funding to EOF. But I don't know why this isn't a bill to move funding to EOF then, because we could definitely do that in the status quo. We could already change the position, the amount of tuition we're sending to each group. And yet this is a completely different subject entirely. And so there's nothing blocking us from making that change. Finally, I just have more of a philosophical difference from a lot of people that were speaking in the positive. I very much err towards the side of keeping and reforming various procedures and processes, not removing them completely. And I think that there are multiple areas of reform to make this process more clear, and multiple ways the committee in the past hasn't completely lived up to the process even as it exists. And so I would argue that we should wait and do that actual reform as opposed to getting rid of the entire thing just because we're frustrated about it. Thank you, and I yield the floor to you.
Alrighty, thanks for that debate, Andrew. We'll now move back to speeches in the positive on the bill. Senator Compton.
A point of information. Assuming that no changes are made to the priority funding system, what fiscal year would you estimate, just using the Writing Center as an example, that all of their funds through this program would be exhausted?
Yes, so that would be about 5 years.
About 5 years, okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tommy. I also saw Senator Roth.
Say the positive.
Oh.
What's up, everybody? So basically, I'm just gonna come up here speaking the positive. I've never debated it here before, so this is just a first time thing. But the way I see this is that we've been supporting these entities for a very long time, and we've essentially become a line item on their budget. Personally, I believe that these places need to find funding elsewhere. They put, obviously, it's been mentioned, they put it on their form that where will you go for funding if we don't have this? And frankly, I personally believe that we don't need to be that funding anymore, and they need to move on and find somebody else to do it.
Alrighty. Thank you for that debate. I will now go back to speeches in the negative on the legislation. Are there any further speakers in the negative? Are there any further speakers in the positive on the legislation? Are there any further speakers at all? Perfect. Marta, do you have debate? Positive. Positive?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I've been running around literally emailing so many people because I've been so torn on this decision. So I know a bunch of other people are also torn. So for a long time, for most of the Senate, I've been really against this bill, but now I'm very in favor of this. If we pass this, I encourage anybody who is worried about these programs to work with me and possibly Blake to putting on some of these on EOF. So just open to that. That is always an option that the minute we pass this, we can put them on EOF funding. But that's it.
Alrighty, thanks for that debate, Marta. Now speeches in the negative are in order. Are there any further speeches in the negative? Any further speeches in the positive? Any further speeches at all? Intern Coordinator Grills.
Point of information, are we allowed to ask how EOF would fund that and information on that?
Sure.
Just to get a better understanding on that.
Yeah, sure, I'll take it. So the reason why I would say that this would have to be approved by the EOF committee. However, EOF currently funds student tutoring salaries through the Academic Achievement Center on campus, meaning at least I would say there's a pretty good chance that it could also be funded by EOF, seeing that it is tutoring specific and we already do that on EOF.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. We're now going to move into a roll call vote on the legislation. Okay. Bain.
No.
Bannister.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Bellamy.
Yes.
Binkley. Blood. Okay.
Yes.
Booze.
No.
Kahlo. Chapas. Compton.
No.
Cranford.
Good.
DeMott.
Yes, by proxy.
Doc.
No.
Dunlap.
No, by proxy.
Ansero.
No.
Esslinger.
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Fuss.
Yes, by proxy.
Gann.
Yes.
Glasscock.
Yes.
Heatherman,
Yes.
Holland,
Yes.
Hotzel,
Yes, by proxy.
Jambunathan,
Yes.
Kalarikial,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Lister,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Marquez,
Yes, by proxy.
Mayor,
Yes.
McPhee,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Pineda Gomez,
Yes.
Porter,
Yes.
Rester,
Yes, sir.
Richenberg,
Yes.
Riffle,
Yes.
Rook,
No.
Roth,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Scharnhorst,
Yes.
Shear,
No.
Schindler,
Yes.
Splekel,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Sitzma,
Pass.
Thomas,
Yes.
Volgamore,
Yes.
Wallace, Warren,
Yes.
Willis Jackson,
Yes.
and Willis Reese.
Yes.
Okay, going back to Sitzma.
No.
Okay. On a vote of 44 to 9 to 0, that legislation is approved.
Alrighty, with that, we will go ahead and move into final action on Bill 61. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
They have. Senate Executive Committee voted to approve an amendment that took the appointed positions on the former DPC committee and add those. Those are from particular multicultural student organizations on campus and put those as appointed at-large positions, not at-large, but as appointed positions on the newly funded DEI committee.
Gotcha. And then there was also just one small change on line 82. It used to read in parentheses all but sports clubs, and that was changed to all but academic competition teams. Just a small fix there.
That one too.
Senator Insero.
Line 10, should that read Kansas State, line 10? Go, you gotta go back up.
Student?
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. I will get that added in. With that, Max, you have first rights to debate.
Thank you so much. Yes, so I really, really appreciate the awesome crowd we had at Senate Exec to discuss this on Tuesday night. I think we had a lot of really good thoughts shared. So to give you all just kind of a recap on how I opened up that as well, the four general buckets of what this legislation goes for and why I think it's so awesome are outlined right there in the first whereas statement. And that gives you four very distinct, almost theses on what this bill is seeking to accomplish and how it seeks to accomplish it. It gives you kind of like those four different problems as they are kind of interconnected now within the structure of SGA. So how those kind of go, the first one is disparate and incongruous allocation structures. Basically, we have a lot of buckets of money that are not necessarily seen a lot of the time, especially coming through here, Student Senate. And so examples of that would be academic competitions teams and how they're funded, as well as EOF and SCTE. Obviously, are smaller processes that are pushed outside, definitely not as visible as our current on-campus and travel allocations committees. So what this bill seeks to accomplish is to bring those various buckets of money more into the fold and to align them under a single allocations chair. And then along with the tuition allocations, SCTE and EOF aligning them under their own chair. So huge advantages by bringing those into the fold as permanent Senate standing committees. A few of those advantages being streamlining the application process. It is the author's opinions that by bringing these buckets of money and kind of consolidating them, it would have huge benefits to our ability to advertise and market and do outreach to the student body. Imagine how amazing it would be if we can just send them a single point of contact or a single application link, and then us be able to funnel their request for funding through its standing committee. So huge advantages in reducing the overall kind of bureaucracy and confusion of the SGA allocation structure. And I think that has really big gains for being able to bring people in, make better use of those dollars, and make SGA more transparent and accessible to the student body. Number two, lack of methodical and durable mechanisms with which to voice student needs. This is all about the current Special Committee on Strategic Oversight. So this line item, we all know how one of the fundamental challenges we face as student advocates is the fact that by and large, plus or minus a few, we have complete turnover in 4 years, if not less than that. The Committee for Strategic Oversight, bringing that in and making it a permanent standing committee, greatly enlarges our ability to maintain, as it says, durable, so long-lasting advocacy needs, and to organize those efforts to make our voice more heard and more cogent over time, especially when we're doing our advocacy to administrators. So we have a wonderful structure and system put in place that we've been working on and perfecting. Amazing job to the chair of that special committee, Chair Lynn. So we have been working really hard to make sure we have that structure and system down, and are really proud of how we think that is going to work in order to act as a mechanism to voice student needs. Number three is reducing the redundancy between the efforts of a legislative standing committee and the executive branch. Further down in the whereas clauses, it mentions how all of these issues are tied together. They're kind of wicked problems. And so by being all tied together, one of those things was, if we're trying to introduce new Senate standing committees, are we just wanting to increase the number of standing committees? And as we kind of took a look around at that, one of the candidates for that, some of that consolidation was, we realized there was a lot of double work being done by the Governmental Relations Committee and a couple of members of the President's Cabinet. So we did a lot of great discussion at Senate Exec on Tuesday and came to some great conclusions about how reducing that crosstalk and empowering those cabinet positions to really take on those roles of governmental relations, we feel really aligns much better with the actual calling and the functions of the executive branch, and think there can be some really great synergies by combining those and empowering those positions to take on those responsibilities. And then finally, kind of along the same lines, as we were thinking about how to optimize and synergize our allocation structures, one of the current issues is that some of these buckets of money are presented to the student services fee by the SGA treasurer, even though they might not always be the one who is sitting in on the committees actually allocating that money. So when we recouped those responsibilities and laid those on the chairs of those committees, then in order to streamline that process, those are the natural people to be able to present those monies. They are the ones who work with them in and out week to week. So that makes perfect sense. And then also finding a new home for those other responsibilities of the treasurer in managing the discretionary SGA budget with the pro tem. So that kind of goes through the 4 fundamental problems. And then we also addressed, I'll hit on some of the most common concerns that we had brought up during Senate Exec. One of them, and during Senate last week, I am happy to report we were able to get back and be in contact with the auditing office, and they had no problem whatsoever. They saw the main thing, the only thing they had, let's see, thank you so much. We will be sure to have, that's Blake's response, never mind. Considering this information, I don't see any issues with the consolidation of various responsibilities within the SGA. The only thing that I would recommend is ensuring that this is documented. Here are plenty of pages ensuring an adequate paper trail for both our reasoning and the actual mechanism for how this change is going to happen. Another concern that was brought up in Senate Exec was the workload of the new student allocations chair. And so we had lots of great discussion. I will leave that to the actual people who are involved with those committees if they would like to debate. They had some really great thoughts to share during Senate Exec. So I know those were 2 of the biggest concerns, but I feel like by the end of that Senate Exec meeting, we had a lot of those out and were able to address a lot of them. So I do hope if there are any other concerns, please do bring them up in debate, and we will love to hash those out. But I cannot recommend wholeheartedly enough how much of I think this is going to be a step change and improvement for the structure of SGA. Yes, it is a lot of change, but I am also confident in the reasoning. And also, as we mentioned last week, or I heard this somewhere, I can't remember who made this quote, the status quo is also a choice. So if we vote to fail this legislation, it's also a choice to maintain the status quo, which in my personal opinion, I think has much greater costs than the costs of approving this legislation. So that's kind of one of the fundamental places, one of the fundamental reasons of my philosophy for wholeheartedly supporting this bill. And I urge you all to do so as well, and I hope we can alleviate any other good concerns. And I think we've had a really good legislative process on this admittedly large and noteworthy piece of legislation. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for your debate, Max. Are there any speeches in the negative on Bill 61? Senator Heatherman.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move for a 5-minute recess.
It has been moved for a 5-minute recess that does require a second.
I'll second that.
All right, we have received a second in the chamber, so we will go ahead and move into a hand vote. All of those in favor of taking a 5-minute recess, please raise your hand at this time. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, the yeas will carry. We will take a 5-minute recess. We will resume at 8:40.
Yeah, it gets really annoying. I got Fred. We all roll up next to it and like face it.
All right, everyone, we're going to resume here in just a minute. Go ahead and start finding your seats. If you know anyone where they are and they aren't here, please let them know to come back.
Yeah, good idea. I would have been very upset.
All right, we are now going to resume from our 5-minute recess. When we last were in session, we were on debate. So we have had one call for positive debate. I will now seek debate in the negative on Bill 61. I will now seek any additional debate in the positive for Bill 61. I will seek any, Chief of Staff Billman, positive?
Good evening, everyone. Very happy to see you all tonight. I would say that I'm going to try to keep this brief, but I have a lot of information to share with you all, so please bear with me. I try not to debate up here very often because I'm not in the legislative branch, and frankly, what I have to say doesn't really matter that much to you all because it's not my branch. But I have been in this branch before, and I do have a lot of perspective on multiple areas of this bill. So I hope that you will listen, and I'm open to like questions of whatever, I don't know, that's like not a thing anymore, but you know what I'm saying. Anywho, so yeah, I'm gonna frame this from the perspective of me and all of the hats that I've worn over my time here. So I'm currently a member of SCTE. I chaired DPC last year. I was the pro tempore last year. I'm currently the chief of staff, and I also serve on the special committee on strategic oversight, hopefully to be the new. So that's 5 things that are pretty heavily addressed in this bill that I've had my fingers in. And so I hope that my perspective will help you all out a bit. I'm going to start off with pro tem / the DPC chair. I'm really in favor of the diversity programming dollars going to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee because I think it provides more intentionality behind the allocation of those funds. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee already exists, and the need to throw together a whole nother committee that doesn't really go through a ton of training, doesn't really go through any sort of intentional discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, doesn't really happen in the DPC committee because there's frankly just not enough time and not enough people. So I think that it adds intentionality under DPC. Yeah, it relieves the pro tem of those duties, and it also gives that $145,000-ish a more qualified chair whose sole duty it is to do that. The pro tem just casually allocating or chairing a committee that allocates that much money, I think is kind of a misservice to students in a way, because it's just such a, I'm not saying that I didn't take it seriously, but it's just such an additional duty that I don't think it's done as intentionally or taken as seriously as it should be. I think that it would just be a better stewardship of student dollars. Also on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, those connections are already made, so it puts more, for a lack of a better analogy, it puts more money behind DEI's mouth. And it says, hey, we're here to support you, and here's money for the projects that you're passionate about. Moving on to my experience as pro tem in general and the potential of transferring some of the duties of the position of treasurer that would be resolved to the duties of the pro tem. The treasurer is a really valued position, and our treasurers the past several years have done a great job, but I do believe that it's a position that can be divided. The discretionary budget within SGA that the pro tem would be overseeing is frankly insignificant compared to the SGA budget in total. I have our FY 2022 budget pulled up in front of me. $45,500 and some change is given to scholarships. About $9,200 goes to compensation and benefits. That's all decided by JCOC, the Joint Committee on Officer Compensation. Each branch gets about $400 of discretionary funds. $5,600 goes to travel, $200 goes to the intern program, $300 goes to promotions, $5,500 goes to elections, and $1,800 goes to the banquet. There's also some money that goes toward internal audit. So that discretionary budget, so things that aren't scholarships, compensation, and then travel's usually already decided. That's all decided by someone else. So really the pro tem / treasurer would only be overseeing like $1,500. That really doesn't matter. They're currently overseeing about $145K. So I think that argument that the pro tem is like involved within a branch and could misuse funds, I think that's kind of a moot point, frankly. So yeah, moving on to SCTE and EOF. I'm currently on the SCTE committee. I think that involving these in one committee just makes sense. It adds more time, it adds more people who that's their sole duty is thinking about new programs and new opportunities for students that could, have money utilized to them. those committees together is about $900,000, and to just have $900,000 allocated by two committees that get kind of like thrown together. I'm not saying that they're just thrown together, but it's not a committee that's always there. So like membership is always kind of iffy. I think ensuring that membership and ensuring that intentionality is a great stewardship of that $900,000. Moving on to my current duty as Chief of Staff and the changes to committee structure. Just the overall changes to committee structure. That's what this section of debate is going to be about. It all boils down to, I believe, in interbranch collaboration. I'm dating the Speaker of the Student Senate. Interbranch collaboration. Just kidding. So sorry. That was a bad joke. That was a bad joke. But moving on. The special committee. I'm serving on the special committee right now. And I love that the Chief of Staff is included in that committee because it boosts interbranch collaboration and it strengthens both the goals of the executive and the legislative branches. It pulls in the appropriate cabinet members. In our meeting the other day, we had the Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Director from Cabinet come and present to the special committee about efforts that she was already working on and was already involved with. And that information was carried over and shared with people from the legislative branch. I think that's a wonderful example of the powers that the Chief of Staff serving on that has, and putting projects in the appropriate hands. It carries goals from year to year, and it addresses adaptive challenges. For you, those of you who haven't taken the lead classes that I've taken, an adaptive challenge is a challenge that has to be addressed over time and will potentially never be solved. This committee, their sole job is to address adaptive challenges and to come up with creative ways and to ensure that those challenges are being appropriately addressed. Finally, the last point that I want to make is the Governmental Relations Committee resolving and those duties being dispersed to the local relations and the legislative director within Cabinet. I think that a pretty obvious example of how this is already being done is the fact that both of those positions are supposed to serve on GR. I think that's a redundancy in and of itself. And really, one of the only big things, I know that GR does a lot of valuable work and has done in the past, but one of the main legislative duties of GR is to do get out the vote efforts, and I think that that could easily be done by one of those members on Cabinet. Another thing, the legislative director attends Big 12 on the Hill and Kansas Higher Ed Day, as well as chairs the Legislative Advocates Committee. It clears up redundancy there and gets rid of the age-old GR versus legislative advocates debate. So yeah, that's all I have. I know that that was so much and that I used a lot of initialisms and things like that, so I do apologize. But I hope that the overall gist that you get is that I've lived a lot of these experiences that'll be changed, and a lot of the qualms that I've had with our current structure are fixed in this bill. And so, yeah, I just hope that you take my experience with a grain of salt, and I hope that you vote yes for this. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate, Maggie. Is there any additional debate in the negative on this legislation? Senator Glasscock.
But this is not a debate.
Gotcha.
This is my fault for not realizing sooner, but I have what I assume is going to be a friendly amendment to this piece of legislation.
Okay.
So I'll just read it out loud. On line 688. It's pretty small. It's a thing.
Okay, I'm at 688.
Cool. I'll wait for you to scroll down. So it's easier to read along with it. So it's part. Okay, so subsection I, subsection 2, part J. So yeah, so it reads, one student representing sexuality diversity shall be appointed. So my amendment is to change that to one student representing individuals from underrepresented sexuality and gender groups.
Yeah, that's fine, Creighton. I took that language directly from what we already have in DPC's bylaws, so I think that's a perfectly reasonable change.
Okay.
Gotcha. So just to confirm, it is between representing sexuality, adding individuals from, or did I miss anything else in that?
Okay, here, maybe I'll just email it so we can get the wording right.
Yeah, That'll work, but I would also consider that friendly.
Okay, cool, yeah, big deal is to, I think, add gender there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for that change. Okay, so with that, I am still seeking any debate in the negative on Bill 61. I will now seek additional debate in the positive on Bill 61. Final call for debate on Bill 61. Senator Heatherman?
Point of clarification, is there one designated person to sign financial documents over the months of the summer?
Yes, so over the months of the summer, that will be in the statutes amendments that is defined in the statutes. All right, Chair Harmon.
Also, just to clarify, the reason that, so for those of you who might not know, in the current practices during the summer, if the treasurer is not able to fulfill those duties, there's a special process to appoint a summer treasurer. That would be eliminated, and in this process, the pro tem who is still around doing their duties during the summer would just absorb those duties. So it's actually even more consolidates that because there's no need for a summer treasurer if the pro tem is around and doing those duties anyway, like they are during the summer.
Alrighty. Senator, oh, there we go. So last time, final call for debate on Bill 61. Seeing none, we will now move into a roll call vote.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. And I meant to ask when we had a roll call vote on 57, if at all possible, those on Zoom, please say your votes out loud so I can make sure that I catch them. Alrighty, first, Bain.
Yes.
Bannister.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Bellamy.
Yes.
Binkley.
Yes.
Blood.
Yes.
Booze.
Pass.
Kahlo.
Yes.
Chapas. Compton.
Yes.
Cranford. DeMott.
Yes, by proxy.
Doc.
Yes.
Dunlap.
Yes, by proxy.
And Saro.
Also yes.
Esslinger.
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Fuss. Gann.
Yes.
Glasscock.
Yes.
Heatherman.
No.
Holland.
Pass.
Hotzel. Sorry, Melody, can you say that again? Okay. Hotzel.
Yes.
Jambunathan.
Sorry.
Yes.
Colorikial.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
Koch.
Yes.
Kramer.
Yes.
Lister. Long.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Marquez.
Yes, by proxy.
Mayor. McPhee.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Pineda Gomez. Porter.
Yes.
Prester.
Yes, sir.
Richenberg.
Yes.
Riffle.
Yes.
Rook.
Abstain?
Roth.
Yes.
Salmon.
Yes.
Scharnhorst.
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Schindler.
Yes.
Splekel.
Yes.
Stout.
Yes.
Sitzma.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Volgamore.
Yes.
Wallace. Warren.
Yes.
Willis Jackson.
Yes.
Willis Reese.
Yes.
Okay, going back to our passes. Booze.
Yes.
And finally, Holland. Melody, could you type that one in the chat?
I don't know if you caught it, but there was a yes by proxy from Binkley also.
Okay, I'll put that down. Thank you, Evan.
No, it's a yes.
Okay. On a vote of 49 to 1 to 1, that legislation is approved.
Alrighty. With that, we will go ahead and move on to Bill 62. Will the author please come forward?
Hello all.
Have any changes been made, Reed?
Let me check. I think the one change was in section 2. We wanted to make sure that it said, like, after passage, like, will take effect on, like, February 24th, after passage of this by the body. So, like, it's not this election, it's next election.
Gotcha. You have first rights to debate.
Awesome. So, I'm kind of I wrote some stuff out, so I'm just going to read what I have typed down, and then, yeah. So, I became elections commissioner, and when I applied for the role, I came into the role with one goal, that goal being to increase student engagement with our elections. My knowledge about campaigns and campaigning stems from working on 2 federal elections, state senate and house campaigns, city council races, and running for office myself and being an elected official. When I started my job as elections commissioner, I was stunned by the amount of rules and seemingly arbitrary deadlines we have. We have pages and pages of regulations, bureaucracy, and red tape. Before I get much further, what are the purposes of election statutes? In my view, the regulations should solely be in place to ensure equity and to uphold the rules that we have to follow from the university. And so some rules are very important, like I said, with equity. For example, personal contribution limits are very good and important to ensure that someone can't just buy the office of student body president. Additionally, we have to comply to the rules of the university, the guidelines of the union governing board, residence halls, etc., for posters and chalking, etc. However, the tabling regulations outlined in my bill that limit the act of reserving a table to campaign is one that is self-imposed by us. There's no higher authority telling us that we cannot, and there's no issues with equity. And with tabling, this form of campaigning is one of the only ones that allows campaigns to directly communicate with students. Additionally, it promotes SGA, increases our transparency as an organization, and increases voter turnout. As I said last week, it is literally just having a table, like an actual table. In my opinion, our statutes have no business to prohibit something as basic as a table, and the current statutes invite candidates to explore other avenues and operate in a gray area, which gives other candidates an unfair advantage if they don't think outside the box. Arbitrary deadlines are confusing. It makes my job hard, it makes candidates' jobs hard, and it makes SJ hard to access and become a part of. The majority of people who have attended my election meetings are already within SGA. We have low filing numbers, in my opinion, because we are seen as complex and confusing by students that are not already in SGA, which contributes to our low numbers. It is so much easier to say to candidates and anybody who is interested in running to say that any form of campaigning can start at the beginning of the spring semester and end when the election is over. And in my view, just having multiple deadlines for forms of types of campaigning is confusing to people that are not traditionally within SGA and might be a little confused. Additionally, we have already tested this out. This is not something new. This, in my mind, this is still a mistranslation from the IRV legislation that happened. So, like, before IRV was passed, for every election that I'm aware of, tabling was allowed for the entire duration of the campaign season, except it was just presidential candidates during the primary. Now, after IRV, there's no natural separation between presidential campaigns and everyone else. We had this debate when I made my major election reforms at the beginning, when I became elections commissioner. We had a debate about how long the election season should be, and we extended it from 2 weeks to 5 weeks. And that was voted upon by this body that pretty much all forms of campaigning should start at this spring semester for any candidate running. But when it comes to this thing, it seems like there's some issues with that, and I'll be encouraged to see as to why that might be in the debate to follow. And the argument that tabling is exhausting and not effective has been brought up as a reason to limit it to 2 weeks. But again, this is your personal experience that might not be shared by everybody else. Maybe a future candidate really wants to table for the majority of their campaign time. Who are we to stop them from doing that? And if it is exhausting and not effective, then don't do it. No one is making you. We see this with chalking. Chalking is allowed to begin at the spring semester, but have you seen any chalking? No, this is because candidates have collectively decided on their own not to chalk.
Lastly, this body seems to be obsessed with being like the federal government until it comes to election regulations. There are hardly any rules for candidates running for federal elections. You can run whenever, wherever. Only thing I can think of is fundraising, which we already have. So if you're someone who has voted in the past that we should be more like the federal government, then you should vote yes on this piece of legislation. Thank you for allowing me to present this bill in front of you, and I hope you all vote yes to clean up our confusing election regulations.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your debate, Reed. I will now seek debate in the negative on this piece of legislation. Senator Booz.
Yeah, when we create elections regulations, we try to create a clear playing field and an even playing field, so that everyone can campaign in the way that matches themselves. I agree with that. And I agree with the previous speaker on that we're trying to make a clear playing field. However, I don't think that's an issue here. And instead, I think that allowing this would make elections and tabling exhausting and make it less likely that ultimately not help or benefit people running. So as part of some history, I wanted to address an assertion that was made about the history of this campaign. Before IRV, presidential campaigns actually could, while they could start at the beginning of the semester with most things other than tabling had to start the Thursday before the primary election. So we already had a idea to say, hey, tabling is worse than everything else. It's more intensive than everything else. We're not going to let it start until a week before the primary election, as opposed to the 2 or 3 weeks that you had as a presidential candidate to do everything else. So historically, we've already had separate deadlines, and it wasn't the entire time before the primary. Additionally, I think that tabling and other forms of campaigning have significant differences that would justify a restriction. First, I think after tabling for 2 weeks that campaigns are just exhausted. I know that the one time I was a member of a presidential campaign and was doing an extra 2 hours of tabling, not every day, but every other day and between classes and that sort of things, that was exhausting. And I think that presidential campaigns are already a step up above the requirements for Senate campaigns, and I think that this could, and I don't know if it will, but this could lead to a situation where every presidential campaign feels like that if they had to win, they would have to be tabling all 5 weeks, and I definitely don't want that. I think that would not help us and our goal of getting more people involved. Additionally, after tabling 2 weeks, I think students are kind of exhausted as well. I think that if you've tabled for 2 weeks in the union, you've gotten almost every student, 99% of the students that walk through the union, you have reached in some way. And so tabling for 5 weeks isn't very valuable in that sense as well. And if it is valuable, then you just run into my first issue of it being exhausting and exhausting for candidates as well. And then finally, the author of this bill keeps bringing up a gray area that we have. And yeah, we've had that gray area, if that even could be called one, for a very long time. But we've never had problems with candidates just standing around and standing around with pieces of paper and handing them out without a table. I don't know, this isn't a realistic argument in my opinion, as someone who's been working on reforming elections regulations for 3 years and been part of several campaigns in this area. Finally, I don't think the low filing numbers this year, which are unusual to me, are because we added additional rules. In fact, we reduced the number of rules that we have, and we simplified them massively. And so I think that there's probably other reasons for that. So overall, I think that historically we've recognized that we should limit tabling more than other items of campaigning, that there is a major difference between tabling and other forms of campaigning that makes it useless and exhausting to allow beyond 2 weeks, and that the gray area is not a problem. And so I think you should vote no on this piece of legislation.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Booz. I will now seek additional debate in the positive on this bill. President Dowd.
Hi, it's been a while. So I stand in favor of this bill, and I'm really glad that Reed made it. And I'm going to second all things that a previous speaker's. No, I'm not even going to say that sentence because that's not right. Anyways, I really like this bill, and the reason being is that one, it has already been discussed that there is a freedom to just allowing candidates to be able to table however they please. And if they come to terms with the fact that it probably isn't the best use of their time, then that's kind of their own decision to discover that on their own and figure it out. But I would also like to point out another piece that I think is really beneficial here that maybe hasn't been realized yet. I don't particularly think that the number of regulations is a deterrent. I think the main deterrent is the limited capacity of the Elections Commission and the commissioner as a whole by having to babysit useless rules that particularly don't have a major effect on how candidates interact with the public. I think if we're able to see the value in anything, I see the biggest value in allowing the election commissioner and the rest of the committee to truly focus on pushing out information around the Elections Commission, focusing in on creating a debate, and really getting the drive to reaching the majority of students, which we have pretty abysmal voting numbers already. And so I really see that as the true value of this bill. And maybe that would happen, maybe that wouldn't. But I think it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you for your debate, President Dowd. I will now seek additional debate in the negative on this bill. Is there any additional debate in the positive on this bill? Senator Glasscock.
Everyone, I just came up here to try to offer a little bit of my perspective on the change this bill makes. I think it's a small one, but I don't think it's a harmful one, as well as some of the history as to what this regulation was in the past and why I kind of see it as having been that way. So I think that the previous regulation for prohibiting tabling for certain candidates and in certain portions of the campaign season, in my perspective, that was sort of done as a nicety to the candidates, because tabling a lot is exhausting, kind of stupid, not really like that much point to it. If you're out there every day tabling for like a month, it's going to wear you down, not going to accomplish a lot. So if one candidate wants to do that, the other candidate's going to be like, oh, well, I kind of feel like I guess I kind of have to. I think it was established as a nicety so that, the other candidate doesn't have to worry about, establishing their tabling front for that extra 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, that their competitors potentially doing that tabling, just to make it less of a worry for general campaigners who have less overall time to be able to engage in that kind of full season campaign situation. So the two essential options in pursuing that are, one, to regulate it and say, okay, you cannot do this no matter what, no matter what the campaign scenario is, versus the 2, 3, whatever potential candidates for position communicating and deciding we're not going to table it all during this period, establishing some sort of agreement of mutually assured mad chilling or whatever. So I think that in my preference, I would go with that latter option to allow people that flexibility to decide kind of as competitors, as campaigners, what route they want to take. I think that it's kind of a rare scenario, but I think that it's possible for this to open up a little bit greater accessibility in case, I don't know, say there's some candidate who's like going to Jamaica or whatever the month before the general election, and they're like, maybe I want to table the month before I go, or like, I don't know, maybe a family funeral or something. Like, I mean, I think it's generally more accessible to give them more time periods in which they can possibly table. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I don't really think it hurts to vote this in. And furthermore, for other candidates other than the student body president, giving them the option to table in the union, whatever, I think that sort of concept does allow a little bit of flexibility in terms of, for example, like college issue kind of outreach for senators in certain colleges. So, for example, College of Arts and Sciences, College of Engineering, pretty big colleges. You'll probably catch people going to the union in those colleges. I think that's an interesting opportunity. If you wanted to table for the senatorship, not necessarily like try and win, because no one's like that serious about it because it's never really competitive enough to get down to tabling in the past. But if you want to use the opportunity to get out the word about an issue you're concerned about, or get out the word, I mean, maybe even to encourage people to get more interested in SGA in general, show them the fingers that your specific college has in SGA, that sort of thing. So I think in general, this bill is really not harmful and has a couple of kind of niche aspects to it that make me, in those scenarios, that would make me want to vote for it for those reasons. So that's my debate. Thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Creighton. Is there any additional debate in the negative? Further debate in the positive. Vice President Koger.
You know me, I don't like to take a ton of your time, and I don't like to kind of take a bunch of executive branch jargon up here. But my main thing is, as someone that's been through campaigning a multitude of times, I believe that one of the best ways you can differentiate yourself and make up ground as a campaign is through tabling. And so from a standpoint of individuals that are deciding to run that maybe didn't have the best chance coming in, giving them the maximum amount of time to table as possible is a net great thing for our organization. It's going to help them interact with more people, even if it's only 1%, 1% of 20,000. Not sure off the top of my head, but several people, okay? Yeah, just holistically, I think this is a really good change. Thank you. Rock on. Go Cat.
Go Cat.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate, Vice President Koger. I will now seek additional debate in the negative. Senator Rook.
Alrighty, I'll keep this pretty short, and this is going to be based off of my own personal experience interacting with really tables of any kind in the union. But when I see a table, I think my two options are either engage, even if I really don't want to, or to just stare straight ahead and hope they don't say something to me and keep walking. Neither of which are enjoyable experiences. And if I'm really excited about the thing, like the table represents, I'm going to support the thing anyways. So we should subject the student body to as minimal amount of tabling as possible, so that way they don't deserve these experiences and like these awkward moments and just the mental burden of having to like make these choices. Just minimize it as much as possible. Yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate, Austin. I will now seek additional debate in the positive. Caucus Leader Koch.
Hello all. I wanted to offer a little bit of insight from a caucus that doesn't have any representatives up this year for election. So I was looking through my Instagram from last year because that's how I got my word out for running for election last year. I had 67 followers, 13 of which were in architecture, and 10 of which were actually in my grade. So I was not reaching basically any of my caucus at all. So my favorite line in this is it allows us to then table in other buildings. It would allow us to table in studio. We don't leave studio. So sure, we might be going to go to the union to get materials for a brief second, but we need to get back in the studio to work on our projects. But if we're passing by in the hall, we're more likely to be seeing able to table there and being able to interact with people in our caucus. So that's my say on that.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate, Tanner. Is there any additional debate in the negative? Senator Booz.
This is less a debate in the negative and more some notice that the members of Senate Operations really did generally like the part that the previous speaker mentioned. And so if there's a lot of demand for that, I could definitely work on a bill with you to do just that piece. I mean, it's partially written already. Like I could ask Reed if I could use part of his. And so like I wouldn't make that your sole reason to vote yes on this piece of legislation. Even if you would vote yes, otherwise that's perfectly fine.
Thank you for your debate, Andrew. Is there any additional debate in the positive? Senator Barron.
Hello. I just wanted to address a previous speaker's concerns about reaching the same people. A previous speaker brought up that 2 weeks is enough time to reach about 99% of the people who walk through the union. I just wanted to share an experience I had today. I actually ate lunch in the union for the first time like ever in my 2 years going to school here. And so I know there's probably not a lot of people like me, but something I noticed when I went into the union for the first time during the day is that there are a lot of high schoolers who go through the union a lot for tours. And so even if we aren't reaching the student body or the voting population here at K-State, we're still reaching people who might join SGA in the future. And I think that adds a lot of value, because adding 3 extra weeks of tabling is a lot of high schoolers walking through the union, and I think that adds a lot of value. And that's really the only insight I can provide, because I haven't tabled before, and I think we've had some pretty credible people come up here and tell you why the exhaustion isn't enough to vote no on the bill. I just wanted to provide the fact that, you know, not 2 weeks isn't enough to reach everybody it would. 5 weeks would still add value. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your debate, Josh. Is there any additional debate in the negative on this piece of legislation? Is there further debate in the positive? Senator Compton.
I'm going to keep this brief. I just want to address one, I think the previous speakers have already laid out enough points on why you should vote for this bill. I want to address some of the concerns from the negative side on why this bill would not be a good idea, which is kind of that the exhaustive, high-energy process of tabling would potentially deter people from the electoral process in general. I think this is a bit of a misconception. I think what this bill does very well is allocate that sort of risk to the campaign itself. This is a bill that allows, like, if someone wants to table for 5 weeks in a row, which would probably be a bit excessive, I think that's more of a risk that they're taking on the side of their campaign rather than cutting off the reach out towards other people. And because I don't think anyone's going to really see an excess of tabling and be like, oh, well, this is kind of obnoxious. I'm not going to associate myself with the SGA ever again. I think that's, and maybe a few people will, but I feel like those are a bit beyond reach. The point is that I think that this, just on the candidate freedom topic especially, it provides something where candidates just have more control and, like previous speakers have said, a bit more time flexibility in terms of when they can table, because I think it is probably, especially for student body president, the most important aspect of campaigning in general. So with that in mind, I encourage a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Tommy. Is there any additional debate in the negative? Senator Rook.
Okay, this is going off my previous debate, but I'm going to try to paint a mental picture here. Imagine the union, quiet, serene. Who in their right mind goes, this place, you know what would make it better? A table. Nobody thinks that, because tables are stressful objects in the union atmosphere. Limit them as much as possible.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Rook. Vice President Koger.
I have a question to ask for the speaker.
Yes.
What would you recommend we eat on?
Thank you for that question, Cameron. All right. I will seek further positive debate on this piece of legislation. Is there any further debate in the negative on this piece of legislation? Final call for debate. Seeing none, we will proceed into a roll call vote.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. Bain.
Yes.
Bannister.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
Bellamy.
Yeah.
Binkley.
Yes.
Blood.
No.
Booze.
No.
Paulo. Chapas. Compton.
Yes.
Cranford. DeMott.
Yes by proxy.
Doc.
Yes.
Dunlap.
Yes by proxy.
Ansero.
Also yes.
Esslinger.
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Fuss,
Yes, by proxy.
Gann,
Yes.
Glasscock,
Yes.
Heatherman,
Yes.
Holland. Thanks. Hotzel,
Yes, by proxy.
Jambunathan,
Yes.
Coloriquion,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Kramer,
No.
Lister, Long,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Marquez,
Yes, by proxy.
Mayor, McPhee,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Pineda Gomez,
Yes.
Porter,
Yes.
Prester, Richenberg,
Yes.
Riffle,
Yes.
Rook,
No.
Roth,
Yes.
Salmon,
Yes.
Scharnhorst,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Schindler,
Yes.
Splekel,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Sitzma,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Volgamore,
Yes.
Wallace, Warren,
Yep.
Willis Jackson,
Yes.
and Willis Reese.
Yes.
Okay. On a vote of 45 to 4 to 0, that legislation is also approved.
All right, with that, we'll move into our final item and final action tonight, and that is Bill 63. Will the author please come forward?
Okay, we've talked a whole lot about this. Basically, we cannot do line item number 3 on the report on sexual assault. It is illegal. So vote yes to take it off, please.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Lynn.
More information.
Chair Long.
What are the legal consequences of not doing it?
We just, if we don't take it off, it'll just be on the list for forever, which would be unfortunate.
Road information.
Senator Rook.
What is this thing? What's the illegal thing?
So if you take a look at the legislation, line item number 3 on the action list for the sexual assault report is that, which we cannot do because of the way that K-State's or student organization structure is.
I have a follow-up question.
Granted.
What is illegal about this, or?
Because the K-State has its organization structure, so the independent organizations are like completely separate. We just do not have the authority to investigate independent student organizations.
President Dowd.
Some clarification. The federal policy, the federal Title IX policy states that if student organizations are separated and independent, that the university doesn't have jurisdiction on those organizations that are not a part of university property. So we would be in violation of the federal law.
Yeah, ditto on what Michael just said.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate, Chair Lynn. I will now seek debate in the negative on Bill 63. Is there any additional positive debate for Bill 63? Is there any debate at all? Seeing none, we will have a roll call vote.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. Bain.
Yes.
Bannister.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Bellamy.
Yes.
Binkley.
Yes.
Blood.
Yes.
Booze.
Yes.
Kahlo.
Yes.
Chapas. Compton.
Yes.
Cranford. DeMott. Doc.
Yes.
Dunlap.
Yes, by proxy.
Ansero.
Yes.
Esslinger.
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Fuss.
Yes, by proxy.
Gann.
Yes.
Glasscock.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes.
Holland. Hotzel.
Yes, by proxy.
Jambunathan.
Yes.
Coloriquion.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
Koch.
Yes.
Kramer.
Yes.
Lister. Long,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Marquez,
Yes, by proxy.
Mayor, McPhee,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Pineda Gomez,
Yes.
Porter,
Yes.
Prester, Richenberg,
Yes.
Riffle,
Yes.
Rook,
Yes.
Roth,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Scharnhorst,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Schindler,
Yes.
Splekel,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Sitzma,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Volgamore,
Yes.
Wallace, Warren, Willis Jackson,
Yes.
and Willis Reese.
Yes.
Okay, on a vote of 48 to 0, that bill passes.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. So with that, we will move on to what we call general orders. And so general orders we don't really use in our agenda except for a few times a year. And this is one of those times. It's usually reserved for elections within Student Senate. And so that is what we'll be doing at this time. So because Bill 61 passed with all the committee legislation changes, our compensation is messed up. Because we have compensation that is scheduled to go to things like the Governmental Relations Chair and the SGA Treasurer, and those positions no longer exist. And we have new positions that'll be joining us that may need compensation. So we, like Max said at the beginning, the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation has been authorized to meet, and this is how we determine our compensation within SGA. And so part of that committee includes 2 representatives elected by Student Senate. So as you've seen in the email and on the announcements in the agenda, we will be electing 2 members at this time. How this is going to go here in just a minute, I will open the floor for nominations, and either you can nominate yourself if you would like to serve on this committee, or somebody else can nominate you. Once we have all of our nominations in place and the floor is closed, at that point I'll have everyone come forward, and then we'll do like a little randomizer to see who gives a speech first. Each member will be given 10 minutes to address the body on why they should serve in the committee. After all speeches have been done, I will send out a Google form to everyone for student senators to vote. And so at that point in time, we will determine who will be representing Student Senate on the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation. The requirements are you must be a student senator and you cannot be an officer of KSU SGA, meaning it can't be me, Nick, it can't be a committee chair. If you're a caucus leader or a vice chair, that is totally fine, but it cannot be someone currently receiving compensation for their works. Are there any questions at all about the process that we are about to embark on? Caucus Leader Gomez, Pineda Gomez.
What are the meeting dates again?
Yes, so those meeting dates, so that is going to be on Monday, February 14th from 3:30 to 5, and then Wednesday, February 16th from 4 to 5 if necessary. And that's based around Dr. Lane's schedule, who will be the chair of the committee. Senator Booz.
Yeah, and this pool is the 63 student senators, correct?
Correct.
Student senators / members.
Correct. Chair Solomon.
Point of clarification, can individuals like decline nominations?
Yes, if someone nominates you and you do not wish to serve in that role, you can decline that nomination. All right, any further questions before we open the floor for nominations? Alrighty, with that being said, I will now open the floor for nominations for 2 student senators for the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation. Senator Willis.
I nominate Gus Scharnhorst.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, it has been, Senator Scharnhorst, do you accept that nomination?
I do.
All right, Senator Scharnhorst is a nominee. I will now seek additional members. Chair Long.
I nominate Juan Pineda Gomez.
Second.
Senator Pineda Gomez, do you accept that nomination?
I decline.
You decline. All right, Senator Booz.
I nominate Representative Hannah Heatherman.
All right, is there a second?
Seconded.
Senator Heatherman, do you accept that nomination?
Accept.
All right. Are there any additional nominations to be made? Senator Koch, is that?
No.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry. Any other nominations? Chair Harmon.
I nominate Donnie Riffle.
Second.
All right, Donnie, do you accept that nomination? All right. Are there any further nominations to serve on the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation? Senator Glasscock.
Well, I will nominate myself.
All right. Is there a second for Senator Glasscock?
Second.
All right. Glasscock is another nominee.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Cameron.
In addition to these two representatives, how many spots need to be filled by, like, the executive branch and et cetera?
Yes. So I get to nominate someone to serve on that committee. Michael does as well, and so does Annalie. Being each branch head gets to nominate one person for that position. That can be anyone. It doesn't have to be a student senator. And then additionally, Dr. Lane is the chair, and then Kelly will also serve on that committee as well.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. I will seek any other nominations that the floor may have. Seeing none, I will seek a motion to close the floor for nominations. Chair Lynn.
I move to close the floor for nominations.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the floor for nominations unless there are any objections. The floor will be closed for nominations. So we have Senator Scharnhorst, Senator Heatherman, Senator Riffle, and Senator Glasscock to be nominated. I am going to plug your names just in the order that they were given to me into a randomizer for a list, and then I will let you know what order you will be speaking in. Let me do that for just 1 second. Okay, our order today is going to be Heatherman up first, Glasscock up second, Riffle up third, and Scharnhorst at fourth. So you will be given 10 minutes each to address the body on why you should serve on this committee. All of our other nominees, if you will leave the room while each person is giving their speech, then we will go ahead and proceed. Hannah, I will give you a text when you are free to rejoin on Zoom, if that works with you.
Sorry, so I need to leave now and then we'll rejoin? I thought I was first.
Oh yeah, you are. Yeah, sorry. I will text you once you're done when you are free to come back. Thanks for that.
Okay, great.
All right, if you three in the chamber will leave the room, I will let you all know when you're free to come back in. If you just want to head into CSI, we can make that the little holding place.
Go to the stair one that are offered.
Alrighty, Senator Heatherman, you have the floor.
Well, I certainly am not going to take 10 minutes of your time during this process, first off, but I'm mostly interested in serving on JCOG because I was there for its assembly in 2019 when I served as Speaker of the Student Senate. Having served in a compensated position, I have absolutely no desire, nor will I ever serve in one again. I have served as a member on DPC, whose responsibilities are being allocated, and having overseen the standing committees, I think I have a good understanding of the work that each of those positions entails, as well as directly working with the former position of treasurer, the reallocation of those responsibilities, and think we'll be able to communicate clearly what compensation should look like moving forward. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions for Senator Heatherman? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Hannah. If you'll go ahead and leave, I will then shoot you a text when you are free to rejoin.
Thank you.
Hey, Max, would you mind being the one who runs and grabs the candidates?
I can absolutely.
Cool. Next up will be Creighton.
Hey, everybody. Do not want to take up a lot of your time. Just kind of ran to potentially offer some perspective with debate here. So I served on JCOC, I think 3 years ago, my freshman year. So I just figured I'd share kind of my thoughts in the committee and kind of what I think are the important parts. One thing I think is really important with the committee is to consider the time committed by each position and what that takes away in terms of opportunity cost for potential job earnings for an individual. Because I think that's what, for me, what the crux of funding position in SGA is to make sure that for individuals who would need the money from an external job, it doesn't prohibit them from holding a higher up executive position in Student Senate. So the compensation is supposed to offset any potential job earnings that they'd be missing out on, just to make that more equitable overall. So that's kind of my main, I guess, thing to hit when it comes to altering the compensation in any of these executive roles. You don't have to vote for me. I would really be okay either way. I think it's important to get fresh faces in there whenever possible, so I think that Gus would be a great choice. I think that in general, I think just pick people that you think would be willing to go the extra mile and interview individuals who've held these positions, and to keep in mind that aspect of keeping it open to lower income individuals. So that's my perspective. Thanks.
Craig, you have to answer.
Oh, there are questions?
Yeah.
Sorry. Are there any questions for Senator Glasscock? Seeing none, thank you very much, Creighton. Creighton, if you will go grab Donnie. Senator Riffle, you have the floor.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Donnie Riffle, currently a grad student in computer science. But essentially what it really boils down to why I think that I might be a good person to be on JCOC is by the fact that I'm really old, right? So I think other than Marcus, I think I've been here the longest aside from him. So I've been involved in SGA for all of the 6 years that I've been here so far, served on several different committees, chaired committee, and generally just have a lot of experience with the whole SGA process and the duties involved with various positions. Especially with the restructuring that we're looking at, I think that's going to be very valuable in that whole process. And I'm gone after this year, so I don't have any bias towards giving more money to certain positions. So yeah, I think that's about it. Essentially, old experience might be helpful. So thank you.
Awesome. Donnie, we have an opportunity for questions. I'm sorry. I forgot to say that before. Are there any questions for Senator Riffle? Caucus Leader Pineda Gomez.
If you get elected to this committee, would you consider staying for another year?
You know, I've always dreamt of being on JCOC. So, no, probably not.
Senator Booz.
Yeah, as people competing for the old person demographic, no, I'm wondering what you think your differentiators are from both Creighton and Hannah in that sense.
Wow, you really put me on the spot trying to throw somebody under the bus here. No, I think they'd both be very good additions to the committee as well. Like I said, I think it's just the fact that I have been around the longest and have such a wide experience across SGA. Even though, I've been on several differing committees, chaired a singular committee, but still was involved in several other areas. So for example, right now, you probably didn't know that I'm on the committee deciding where the new tailgate lot is. That's just something I'm doing that, random different bits and pieces around SGA. So just a lot of general experience across the entirety of SGA and all of the different positions and their responsibilities, level of work it takes, and especially when we're considering new positions, they're more of a conglomerate of various different responsibilities. I think that'll definitely be a benefit to the committee as a whole. And I've had a lot of really good experience working with Dr. Lane before, so that would be handy.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any further questions for Senator Riffle? Seeing none, thank you, Donnie. If you'll go and grab Gus.
I will.
Thanks for not asking my age.
Tony, how old are you? Like, what
Too
age?
late, man. 25.
Alrighty, Senator Scharnhorst, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Basically, here's my qualifications. I'm a member of SGA who has, I would say, worked hard. I have never been an officer. That might be considered a drawback, but I think it could also be a great benefit in terms of representation on assigning officers compensation. I follow the principle that I think is tacitly accepted by previous versions of this committee, which is that people should not have to choose between paying for school and doing SGA. So I will make sure that anybody who wants to be an officer in SGA in the future does not have to lose access to money. That's all.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Senator Scharnhorst? Seeing none, thank you very much, Gus. Oh, Senator Booz.
Sorry, I came up with one. Yeah, what position do you feel like you have the kind of the least understanding of, and like how would you work to gain that understanding on the committee?
I would have to say the position of allocations chair, or the future allocations chair, but student services fee and both of the allocations committees. So I would talk to the current holders of those positions and, if necessary, previous holders of those positions to get their perspective, because I think I'm much closer to the GR, DEI, and Senate Ops perspective.
Are there any further questions for Senator Scharnhorst? Seeing none, thank you very much, Gus. If you'll go grab everyone else, we will vote here in just a minute. All right, I am going to text Hannah, and then as soon as she rejoins, I will send out the link for everyone to vote. Chair Salmon.
I have just an order.
Yes.
Is it like two individuals need majority, or is it just top two individuals? How's the election work since we have?
Yes, so the top two vote getters will be the ones who are elected. I have it set up so that everyone will rank their candidates in order from first, second, third, and fourth preference.
So you actually, well, so yeah, are we actually doing basically like STV? Or
STV?
single family vote?
I think you said me.
Yeah, so we'll go based off of that to determine who the winner is. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Has Hannah rejoined the meeting yet? Awesome. So I am going to go ahead and send out the form to vote. You all should be getting that here in just a second. Please only click on this link if you are a student senator. There is a question on there that asks you to confirm that, and I will verify based off of your first and last name as well. Has anyone gotten it yet? I definitely click send, I promise.
Wait a minute. You know, the world's here.
The internet is so
All right, I'm gonna try it again. There it is. All right, I will leave about 5 minutes for voting. So once you vote, if you need to use the restroom or anything, feel free to go ahead and do that while I tabulate as well.
What's the punishment? Point of information.
Caucus Leader Vogelmore.
What if we are a proxy?
Yes, if you are a proxy, you can vote twice. So you will type in your proxy's name, but make sure you put in parentheses on one of the lines, like proxy, if that makes sense.
But she landed like that. I don't know why.
What's going on?
Nick, you know she has no filter.
I asked first.
What is more aggressive? Oh, no. She's so much more aggressive.
She's extremely authoritative.
Whoa! That's really gross. She doesn't like person.
I saw that. Look at him, he's so shaky.
He's quaking.
Oh my god, he's wearing boots. He lost it.
Not the hoop. For boots touch, what do you get? I mean,
The Google algorithm is tapping
well, so Google can't do that. Like, it will not, like, do a choice plan for you.
It's the first time to do both tasks.
Like, we didn't have the first choice, third choice, then fourth choice.
They're not using it ranked choice.
They weren't sure.
She's really upset.
They could never, they would call it, even if gone to like, just like, I know.
Send it to me.
I'd perk up and be like, oh, hold on.
Yeah, it's just a free app.
Okay, everyone, if we can come back into order really quick. It was brought to my attention, and this is my mistake. We should allow debate for these positions as well, as we do for the Speaker of the Student Senate, Speaker Pro Tempore of the Student Senate. So that opportunity should be given for general orders as well. So what we are going to do now, unfortunately, I will be clearing the results from the form, and we are going to open the floor for debate. If this doesn't, if it doesn't take very long, that's okay. But I would encourage anyone who has any debate, you are more than welcome to make it. So what we are going to do at this time, just one second. If our 4 candidates will go ahead and leave the room again. I apologize for that mistake. That is my fault. And Hannah, again, I will text you when you are free to come back, and I will get that form cleared. So debate is going to work in the exact same order that speeches were given. So I will give the opportunity for those who would like to support Hannah Heatherman to give their debate. Same thing going down the list until either debate is exhausted or the previous question is called. Are there any questions about the process that we're about to embark on? Director Brown.
All right, quick point of clarification. I'm not expecting there won't be, but if there were no debate, would you keep before you delete?
Yes. If there's no debate at all, I will keep the results that are here. However, I don't expect that to be the case.
Yeah, me neither.
Gotcha. Any other questions before we begin the debate period? All right. Seeing none, I will now seek debate for Hannah Heatherman. Senator Harmon. Chair Harmon.
Yeah, I'm no senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, I'm sorry, I should have asked this. I do have a question of privilege. Or parliamentary inquiry. So the order of things, you're going to go down by candidate. Am I allowed to speak for Heatherman as well as one other candidate and just make one debate?
So you can debate for, so you'll do your debate for Heatherman now, and then you'll get up and debate for that candidate at that given time. I can't control what you say in debate, so if you want to include that now, you're welcome to, but that is how it works, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The speaker breaks the fourth wall and looks at the audience. Audience, I am up here tonight to speak in favor of Hannah Heatherman and Donnie Ripple. I stand up here, my arguments for making this debate, I think mainly hinge on one pretty cogent philosophy of mine that pertains very specifically to the nature of the Joint Committee on Officer Compensation. While normally I am all for the argument of getting fresh faces on various committees and in all sorts of positions all around SGA, I think that's a great thing. It has very many benefits for our body and is the right thing to do. I think JCOC is certainly the exception to that. And I think that is because of the extremely condensed timeline of how JCOC works and the nature of its discussions. I do not see personally, I see the disadvantages as being much greater than the advantages of having somebody who is unfamiliar with the process or with those positions being put into that role. It is my goal up here to convince you all to elect the most effective members that you possibly can to this committee. You only have two choices, and that's extremely, extremely limited. And in my outlook of who who I think would be best suited to serve on that committee, I don't get a vote on this, but if I were in your positions, I would be looking for individuals who are able to, day one, absorb massive amounts of data. The work that JCOC does is absorb tons of interview responses, lots and lots of data, and have to make decisions, very, very important decisions that will last for a long time, and very much have an impact on students' lives and how the structure of SGA works in a very, very short amount of time. So I am looking for individuals who are familiar with that process and have the most experience. So for me, that narrows it down to 3 candidates, admittedly. That is Heatherman, Riffle, and Glasscock. And I have absolutely nothing against the 3rd candidate. He is very qualified as well, and I look forward to hearing potential debate on his merits and qualifications. For me personally, I know that Heatherman and Riffle are both of the ones who have the most out of any of those candidates, both serving in compensated roles and being around in the past and have the most experience and the most breadth of roles to be able to make some of the most informed decisions on how to reallocate these funds. So I implore you all, I'm happy to hear, I would love to hear counter arguments in the debate, but I am pretty firmly convinced that JCOC is an exception to the rule in that fresh faces make for the best ideas sharing, the best, most effective committee. Because of the short timeline and because of the nature of the amount of data that they are absorbing, I am looking for the most effective people who are able to, day one, absorb that data and be really effective members on the committee. It is my experience that when you have unexpected individuals step on a committee, there's always a steep learning curve and a period of time where it's just a fact. Members who are new to an experience aren't able to voice their opinion. They're not able to be good representation for that background until they feel like they're able to voice their opinion and be effective within that system. In JCOC, there simply isn't the time to get those members trained, and I think it's a waste of a very, very important and crucial seat, one of only 2 that you all get to directly elect on that committee. And it is nothing against fresh-faced candidates. I really, really hope wish them all of the best. But for those reasons, I am urging you all to vote for Heatherman and Riffle for those particular reasons and for those particular philosophies. Thank you all.
Thank you for your debate, Max. I will now seek debate for Senator Glasscock. Director Colburn.
All right, well, I wasn't planning to debate, but since we're debating, I think this is a fun time to talk about Creighton's experience on JCOC. He has, unlike previous speaker, or not previous speakers, the other candidates, he was the only one who specifically shared that he has served on JCOC. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cool. Just making sure. Creighton's the only one who has served on JCOC, and I agree. This is a really special committee. It's very unique. Creighton has served on it before. He understands, like, kind of the position of what JCOC is going to take. While other candidates might have experience in the compensated roles, I think that you can never get rid of bias, but I think that that can kind of bias and affect their opinions, whereas Creighton has served solely to evaluate the data that has been presented and has a little bit less kind of bias in that realm. I also think Creighton is a really good candidate. I experienced him being on JCAC, and I was in an uncompensated role that they were thinking about making compensated, and then served in a compensated role that they had made compensated, if that makes sense. And Creighton talked to me like about both of those positions and really got my feedback in a one-on-one situation beyond. Of course, we filled out the surveys, but he was really interested in understanding the individual experiences of the people in those roles. So I just know he's done a good job representing and asking questions and gathering information in the past. I think he'd do a great job again. That's all I got.
Thank you for your debate, Director Colburn. I will now seek debate in the positive for Senator Riffle. I will now seek debate for Senator Scharnhorst. Senator Booz.
Yeah, so personally, when I'm looking for people who I'm voting for the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation, I was kind of trying to triangulate between the concerns of having people who are new and fresh-faced and having people who are really experienced and have been here a long time. And so I think that like the first three candidates are really like all very, very good at having different qualifications for their experience. But I think that Gus is the only person that fills the more newer side of that role. And since that we have two positions that we can fill, I think that it's kind of a no-brainer to put Gus in one of them. Now, I mean, I think there was a previous speaker who mentioned that, we don't have time. But I was impressed by the answer that Gus gave me when I asked him the question about which position does he think he knows the least about and what he would do. And he mentioned, like Creighton had done before, talking to those previous people in that position. And so, like, I think that's a good thing, and I think he'll generally throw himself in, feet first, or maybe face first, and dive into it. Either way, he'll be enthusiastic on making sure that this works. So I think, you should definitely vote for, get at least one experienced candidate on there to provide that perspective. But I also think you should consider putting a candidate on there who is a little newer, but one if you can trust him to keep up, which I think I do. So, thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Booz. I will now seek debate in the positive for Senator Heatherman. I will now seek debate for Senator Glasscock. I will now seek debate for Senator Riffle. I will now seek debate for Senator Scharnhorst. Final call for debate on any candidate. All right, seeing none, the floor will now close for debate. So I will text Hannah again. Max, if you wouldn't mind going and grabbing the candidates, I will open up the form here in just a minute.
Mr. Speaker.
Senator Pineda-Gomez.
Same form.
Yes, I just stopped it, or I deleted the responses and then closed it. The form should now be open. Let me know if that link does not work. Good? Awesome. Alrighty. Everyone, please use the same link in order to vote, and Nick and I will tabulate it up here. Alrighty, I'm missing just a few responses from next time. If you haven't voted yet, please cast your vote. Nick and I will make our official tabulation at 10:11. Again, if you are a proxy, you can vote for your proxy. Please just include proxy in the namespace somewhere. Alrighty, folks, we have the results in. Will the chamber come back to order? The results are in, and our two representatives for the Joint Committee on Officers' Compensation will be Hannah Heatherman and Donnie Riffle. All right, thank you both very much. I will talk to you all after this meeting to get you all more information. With that, we will now continue on with our agenda into introduction of allocations. Sorry, things are blowing away up here. So first up, can I get a motion to consider the allocations? Chair Long.
I move to the allocations. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the allocations. So first up, we have Bill 64. This is the fiscal year 2022 allocation of open house funds. The College of Agriculture was recommended $450. College of Business was recommended $1,875. College of Education was recommended $2,318. Steel Ring was recommended $2,400, and the College of Health and Human Sciences were recommended $250 for a grand total of $7,293. Next, in Bill 65, we have the fiscal year 2022 travel allocation to the Mechanical Contractors Association of America. They are going to San Diego, California for the MCAA annual convention, March 12th through March 14th. They requested $400 and were recommended $400. Are there any questions or corrections for the allocations? Caucus Leader Kidd.
For the open house allocation, in the past, have we ever included the amount requested from the different colleges, just for like comparison?
Chair Jamie Nathan.
Yeah, I can answer that. I went back to the previous, it was like fiscal year 2020, and then the year before that, neither of those chairs have included it. I definitely can if you think that is necessary. I don't really have an issue with that.
Granted.
Follow up, I guess. Yeah, just to kind of see visually of what amounts they asked for and then how much they were actually given, just to look, just like normal, any other allocation.
Yeah, it'll be referred back to their committee. So Durga, if you all want to consider that in committee, you definitely can.
Good.
Chair Richenberg.
What is steel ring?
Yes, I'll refer that to you, Durga.
Yeah, steel ring is the college, acts as the college council for the College of Engineering. I can put College of Engineering, but they're the
Senator Booz.
Yeah, I can provide a bit more information because I've never been a member of Steel Ring, but Steel Ring is an honor organization at the College of Engineering. So the Engineering College Council does exist, but Steel Ring does the open house. So as opposed to the college councils and all the other colleges that got funded. So that's why Steel Ring got funded.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Any other questions or corrections for the allocations? Seeing, Caucus Leader Kidd.
So sorry. Where did the budget dollar amounts of $7,293, where did that come from for open house?
Yes, so that is allocated by the Student Services Fee Committee each year. Is that the exact amount allocated, Durga?
Yeah, that is our complete budget. We allocated literally every single dollar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any further questions or corrections? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move into introduction of legislation. First up, we have Bill 66. Is there a motion to consider? Senator Scharnhorst.
I move to consider Bill 66.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 66. Will the author please come forward? Caucus Leader Pineda Gomez.
Not exactly sure how to move this, but I move to consider Bills 66, 67, and 68.
Gotcha. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the rest of the legislation for tonight. Are there any objections to that? Senator Scharnhorst?
I move to, let's finish the first motion.
Gotcha. No objections out there? Seeing none, Senator Scharnhorst, your motion.
I move to allow the author to summarize.
On all three?
Yes.
Awesome. Are there any objections to allowing the author to summarize on all three pieces of legislation? Seeing none, Andrew, you have the floor for the next three pieces of legislation and may summarize.
All right. Yeah, I'm not sure how to organize this now. I tried to set up a question, Creighton asked me a question about what this is about, / if I'm doing anything with judicial speaking rights. The answer is this week, no, but next week I will be introducing two pieces of legislation to give judicial members approved by the Student Senate speaking rights. So on the other hand, these three pieces of legislation are about groups that I feel like the speaking rights should not be in the same way or should be taken away in general. Those groups are presidents of student organizations and Phase 1 interns, not Phase 2, to be clear. So let's just talk about Bill 66, which is removes the requirement in the bylaws that Phase 1 interns have the ability to make any motion. It also removes the extra impediment that interns may not sponsor any legislation without a senator co-sponsor, which is actually is kind of duplicative of what's in the statutes and is actually an extra issue because that would mean that interns can't sponsor something with a committee co-sponsor, which is kind of weird. Both of these are left over from when the intern program was the SGA intern program, and I think it's important that we kind of realign when it was the Student Senate intern program, excuse me. So it's important that we realign there. The second bill just removes the presidents of the student organizations having independent speaking rights. That is in part because it was only added in 2017, which is very recent, in part because I don't know if that has ever actually happened, and in part because they're not approved by Student Senate. And that is kind of what I've found is the most historically consistent heuristic for deciding whether to grant people speaking rights or speaking privileges. And then Bill 68 basically just clarifies that the interns that have speaking rights are the Phase 2 interns. There's a whereas clause in there that I'm sure that the intern program will do everything possible to move people from phase 1 into phase 2. But while they're phase 1 interns, they aren't approved by Student Senate, and therefore they wouldn't qualify for speaking privileges under kind of the heuristic that I'm using. But the other reason that these are 3 separate bills as opposed to 1 is because I wanted to present these to Student Senate. And if you think that like presidents of student organizations should have speaking rights, but phase 1 interns shouldn't, or vice versa, that is a choice you can make. It's not a choice that I think is as consistent as the bills that I'm introducing this week and next week, but that is a choice. And I wanted to make it easy as opposed to, requiring amendments or that sort of thing. So I believe that's a full explanation. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know now or after the meeting or at next meeting.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Senator Booz? Seeing none, thank you very much, Andrew. With that, we've exhausted our legislative agenda for the night after a lot of debate and hard work. So we will now move into second open period. Are there any speakers tonight for second open period? All right, seeing none, Nick, I will let you address Senate shoutouts.
Yeah, so I like them. I like them a lot. It's fun to read them every week. We have 119. So you all will be getting an email.
Chair Long, that motion is denied.
Email and like 5 random ones?
Yeah, Nick, can you pick some real good ones? Just scroll.
Nick, the memory is always, it's what makes
Thanks, Evan. I'm not gonna favorite any shoutouts.
Chief of Staff Billman.
Can you just do final roll call and then people that want to stick around to hear them can hear them?
One flag.
I guess that is technically allowed.
All right, that'll work. We'll do some Senate shoutouts after final roll call. So, reference of legislation for the night. The Bill 64 will be referred to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. Bill 65 will be referred to the Travel Allocations Committee. And then Bills 66, 67, and 68 will be referred to the Senate Operations Committee. Nick.
Alrighty. Bain.
Here.
Bannister.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Bellamy.
Here.
Binkley. Blood.
Here.
Booze.
Here.
Kahlo. Chapas. Compton.
Here.
Cranford. Kahlo's here. Okay. Doc.
Here.
Ensero.
Here.
Esslinger.
Here.
Fields.
Here.
Gann.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Heatherman. Holland. Jambunathan.
Here. Holland said here on the chat.
Colorikiol.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Koch.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Lister. Long.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
McPhee. Nelson.
Here.
Pineda Gomez.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Prester. Richenberg.
Here.
Riffle.
Here.
Rook.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Solomon.
Here.
Scharnhorst.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Schindler.
Here.
Splekel.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Sitzma.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Volgamore.
Here.
Wallace. Warren.
Here.
Willis Jackson.
Here.
And Willis Reese.
Here.
All right, thank you all very much. With that, I will now seek a motion for adjournment. Chair Lynn.
I move to adjourn until next week, same time, same place.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn until the next week at the same time, same place. Are there any objections? Seeing none, have a great night, everyone. Thank you all for your hard work. Drive home safe and go Cats.
Yeah. There's like locomotion in here.